Story 1. Ornithophobe panics at bird, shoves co-worker at moving vehicle, she's badly injured and demands his firing. I'm a manager. I'm having an issue with the two of my staff, Liz and Jack. They were returning from an off-site meeting and had parked in front of our building. According to Liz and other witnesses, there was a bird on the sidewalk, and when it flew away, Jack ran. Liz was less than a step ahead of him, and he pushed her out of the way when he was running. Liz fell off the curb and got hit by a car that was parking. She ended up covered in bruises and breaking both bones in one forearm. Liz had to be taken to the hospital in an ambulance. The breaks were in the middle of her forearm and were so bad that Liz had surgery on her arm the next day and required a total hospital stay of 4 days. Jack didn't try to help Liz after it happened. He stood far away and came into our building as soon as the ambulance arrived. Jack told me, "My boss in HR, he has a phobia of birds," and later produced a letter from his therapist stating he has been in therapy and treatment for ornithophobia and anxiety for over 2 years. He explained it was why he tried to run from the bird and said he didn't help Liz after she got hit because the bird landed on the ground close to her. Understandably, Liz is angry. She wants Jack to be fired. HR was wary of firing Jack when he has had no previous trouble and has a phobia and mental illness that rise to the level of needing treatment, and so am I. When Liz found out that Jack wasn't going to be fired, she quit. Liz was working on a few projects, and without her there could be delays and extra costs incurred. We have tried to get her to come back, but she refuses unless Jack is fired. Jack called her with HR present to apologize, but she didn't accept and yelled at him. With Jack's permission, his phobia and mental health issues were explained to Liz, but she says she doesn't care. What should I do? I don't feel comfortable firing Jack or recommending it given what he disclosed. I'm not sure where to go from here. April 27th, 2017. There was a police investigation because Liz was injured by a vehicle. Both the police and the driver's insurance company found Jack to be 100% at fault for what happened, based on multiple witness accounts that Jack had extended his arms back and then out when he pushed Liz and didn't just lightly bump into her. Liz agreed it was Jack's fault and not the driver. One of the mirrors on the vehicle was damaged when Liz was hit, and Jack paid to have it repaired as a resolution with the driver, and everything between the driver and Jack has been settled. Jack has not been charged with anything. It is still a possibility that he might be. HR and Jack had attempted to keep in contact with Liz after she got out of the hospital to see if there was any chance of her coming back, but she never responded. Eventually, both Jack and the company received a letter from a lawyer asking that they not contact Liz again. She never asked for money to pay her medical bills, didn't file a workers' comp claim, and didn't take any legal action against Jack. The legal department and the outside legal counsel who HR got a second opinion from had told Jack and the company to prepare for a claim and other legal action and advised all to settle because Liz had a strong case. Her letter stated she had decided to not take action and just wanted to move on for her own well-being. She now has another job. Our company was not contacted for a reference or employment history. I don't know if Liz told them what happened during the interview, but our industry in this area is small, and I know for sure she has now told her new job everything that happened. After what happened, Jack told me he decided to take a break from therapy and look at his options. I was surprised, and he volunteered that information without me asking. But since I am in a management position over him, I didn't think it was appropriate for me to comment or tell him that. His work is still excellent, and he has had no disciplinary or work-related issues. December 14th, 2017. Liz is still at her new job and has not attempted contact, legal, or financial comp with Jack or the company we work for, either herself or through a lawyer or anyone else. Word about what happened and the aftermath has gotten around the industry a little. I have been asked about it by a few people I know from other places. I just tell them I have nothing to say and they stop asking. Jack is still working here. He has not re-entered therapy or isn't undergoing any kind of treatment. Thank you again for your assistance here. Happy holidays to you and your loved ones. Thank you to you Gupa and you Claudia for supplying the full comment from OOP. Good afternoon. Thanks for printing my update, Allison. I am the OP. Allison can verify that my name is the same as on the emails I sent her. I appreciate the input from Allison and everyone. I tried to keep my letter short and to the point, but I'm posting once to clarify some things that I see being discussed. Liz did not demand that Jack be fired. She quit, and when HR wanted to know what it would take for her to come back, she said firing Jack. This was right after her surgery before she was discharged. HR declined, so Liz said she would not return. She only told HR she wanted him fired because they asked first. I had no input or say in the company or Jack calling Liz at home. There was no checking in or asking how she was. They did want to convince her to come back, and that was it. At no point did the company offer Liz financial assistance. According to her lawyer, she is on a 5-year payment plan with the hospital and rehab center for her bills. Jack is taking a break from therapy, meaning he is not seeing a therapist and has no plans to see any professional in the future. As I said in my letter, I did not feel it was appropriate for me to lecture him on his choice. I am sure Jack is embarrassed and mortified. The only apology he made was when HR asked him to call. A letter of apology was included to the driver as part of the settlement. That's all I have to say, thank you. Story 2. Learned a family secret a few months ago, and it's been on my mind due to the holiday. I lost my mother when I was very young, and my father remarried to the woman I grew up calling Mom. Mom has an older son and a daughter who is about 12 years older than me. It was never a secret that Mom wasn't my biological mother. I see my stepbrother on the holidays, but I have had zero contact with my stepsister. I learned why that was. My mom and stepsister moved in after she and my dad got married. I don't remember her being very nice, and then she was just gone. I was told she had to go away for a while. Mom brought me everywhere with her. The store, to her friends' places, to the zoo, etc. She helped me get ready for school and helped me with schoolwork. She watched a handful of kids' movies in the theater that, looking back, were likely indecipherable nonsense to her. All 3 of those Pokemon movies, for example. She cried at my high school graduation, even when she promised me she wasn't going to cry. She was my mom. She loved me to bits. All the while, she never erased my mother. Her and my dad would look at photos of my mother, and Dad would tell stories, and Mom always said she wished she met her. My father and maternal grandfather had it for me after she died, so I had something to remember her by. I have that photo album in my apartment. Been looking at it a lot lately. Here is the kicker. It's not the original photo album. I never saw the original photo album. What made my mom disown my stepsister is that she burned the original after my mom scolded her for being rude to my father and I. Mom discovered what had happened because her and her friends had done it together, and one of her friends felt so guilty, she confessed to her own mom, who called my mom. Mom kicked stepsister out of the house and had movers take her things to her dad's house. Dad came home to my mom, who explained in tears what was up. She and my dad then went around to family, friends close and distant, and even my mother's alma mater to look for photos of my mom to try to make a new album. Dad told me everyone in the lives had risen to occasion and they were able to build a new album. Even if some of the original photos and Polaroids were gone forever, they had new photos from Mom's college friends. I asked Dad if my stepsister ever apologized or tried to reach out, and he confirmed she tried, but Mom fundamentally wants nothing to do with her. I thought a lot about forgiveness and family these last few months. I never knew about the original album, so I didn't have much of a reason to hate her. I do think the album was likely a last straw for Mom, and wasn't the primary problem, even though destroying the album was cruel and kind of evil. I don't plan on talking to my mom about it. I think it would be better to respect her desire to continue not having a relationship of any kind with my stepsister. My only plan is to make sure to give both of my folks big hugs. Relevant comment. How old was stepsis when this occurred? Stepsis was 18, maybe 19. Update December 18th, 2024. I made a post a few days ago about learning about how the photo album made of photos of my deceased mother was actually a replacement album after my stepsister, her bio daughter, destroyed the original by setting it on fire with her friends. This led to my mom, I call my stepmom Mom, going no contact with my stepsister. I was just getting something off my chest, was surprised by the responses I got. I texted my mom that I knew about what happened, and asked if I could call her to talk about it. We talked and did clarify some things my dad likely forgot. Even before she had started seeing my dad, my mom and stepsister were having problems. Her ex-husband was a fair-weather parent and wasn't very supportive. My stepsister, during her last 2 years of high school, became part of a clique of girls who were always in trouble. Mom had to field several accusations of bullying and otherwise poor behavior. She tried to get her into counseling or therapy, but she refused point blank, and at a certain point you can't force someone if they don't want to go into therapy. She tried grounding her and taking away privileges. She had also been lying about applying to colleges, so the final few months before graduation were a mad dash to apply for schools before throwing the towel and having her apply to community college. When she married my dad and moved the both of them into my dad's house, the only expectations my mother gave her were be nice and be tidy. She was never expected to babysit me. Well, she couldn't follow those guidelines and clashed almost every day with my mom and dad and would raise her voice at me — I had been 6 years old — for watching TV or playing in the backyard. My stepsister only lived that house for over a month before my mom sent her away. The breaking point was reached even before the photo album. My mom told her ex-husband he had to take her for a while. Stepsis was pissed because her father lived an hour away and she wouldn't be able to see her friends, but Mom put her foot down that she couldn't stay there with the way she had been treating everyone. My stepsister must have found the album and called her friends to meet up with her, where they burned it in a bonfire. When Mom asked why on earth she did it, my stepsis thought it would be funny to take something from my father and I that we would miss. Mom ended up kicking her out right there and calling movers that day. She was furious and upset, and felt the two of them having some distance apart would be for the best. Mom was also panicking because she thought her marriage had just gone up in flames. However, my father never blamed my mom for what had happened. Mom told me she just didn't have the desire to reconnect with my stepsister when she reached out a few years ago. She can't let go of my stepsister's deliberate cruelty to not just her and my father, but to me. My stepsister was an adult when she did what she did. In her absence, she had a wonderful husband and 2 sons, my older stepbrother and I, who were kind to her. My relatives all loved her. She admitted that her mental health had improved considerably without my stepsister around. She had wanted to prioritize the people in her life who weren't toxic. She assured me she hadn't left her with nothing. She had full access to a college fund that my mother set up for her when she was born, and she will still get an inheritance. Mom finished the call by telling me she still felt horrible about what happened to the photo album and wished those memories of my mother weren't gone forever. I told her it was okay, and that I appreciated the lengths she and my dad went to replace it before telling her I loved her. To address a few commenters, I did not and still do not have any desire to talk to my stepsister. I just wanted the whole story. Story 3. When I was 18, my mother took me to a fortune teller. 3 out of 7 prophecies of his already came true. Just a little background. I originally come from Ukraine and I travel a lot all my life. I studied and lived in England from 12 until 21 years old, and now am working on Belgium. My mother knew this fortune teller, who was known to be diagnose diseases just by holding your hand, as well as predict your future, at least key events. My mother was worried about my future since I had so many opportunities that she took me to see this guy. I had exams coming up, and it was a good way to both distract myself and learn something new. The guy made a total of 7 predictions. I will first mention the ones that happen and then rest that are yet to be. Just to let you know, this guy lives in a tiny village and never traveled outside of it, nor does he have access to the internet. Anyway, here goes. I would get 82% in my exams. He guessed the exact percent. I was doing well in my studies at all, and I only started studying properly in the last months. He put his hand on my forehead and immediately said, I shouldn't worry, as I will get 82%, which is what I need to get into a university I wanted. That came true, and I went Yo University. 2. I have problems with my liver. I was a very healthy kid and did a lot of sports semi-professionally. In my school at 18 years old, I was in a football, rowing, and tennis team. I barely drink and eat properly and had a very healthy body composition. After he said I have problems with my liver, we went to a doctor, and guess what? I had an enlarged and hardened liver. Doctors had no idea what caused it, and to make it normal, I had to do a special diet for 2 months. After that, it all went back to normal. 3. I would travel to Finland for work at 23 years old, but not before then. I had a business trip to Estonia and Finland last December. And guess what? I literally traveled to Finland the day before I turned 24. I had no control over booking the tickets or scheduling this business trip. My management sent me on this mission. I never been to Finland nor any Nordic countries ever. 4. At 28, I will have 1,000 employees under my management. Hasn't happened yet. I am currently trying to work myself up to become a project manager, but still not sure if it's possible for this to happen. Right now, I manage around 30 employees, so it's a big jump to 1K, but we will see. 5. In my entire life, I will travel to Russia only twice. Hasn't happened yet. Due to a political climate between Ukraine and Russia, I haven't traveled to Russia ever yet, although I do want to visit badly. 6. I will marry a blonde woman and will have 2 daughters. Hasn't happened yet. It was always a dream of mine to have daughters, not sons. I can't explain why, just always wanted to. I have mostly females in my family, loads of sisters, aunts, and grandmas, so let's see. 7. I will move and live in Finland most of my life. Might happen soon. This is quite unbelievable. He said that when he concentrated on my future, he saw the word Suomi around me a lot. At the time, none of us knew what it was. He also said that I would live and probably die in Finland. When I came home and Googled what Suomi is, it turned out to be a language spoken in Finland. And as for working there, when I had a business trip, I made some connections with other colleagues who invited me for some potential working position. So I might end up moving there sooner rather than later. So that's that. He predicted a lot of things, like prostate cancer in early stage for my dad's friend, which saved his life, as well as healing my grandma's depression by one 15-minute talking session. I don't know if there is anything to this guy, but it's sure not just accidents. Update December 16th, 2024, 4 years later. Hi all. So around 4 years ago, I made a post on this sub about my visit to a fortune teller. You can find the post here. Since then, I received dozens requests every year for an update, so I thought to provide one now. Like last time, just a little background. I originally come from Ukraine, and I travel a lot all my life. I studied and lived in England from 12 until 21 years old, and now am still working on Belgium. My mother knew this fortune teller who was known to be diagnose diseases just by holding your hand, as well as predict your future, at least key events. My mother was worried about my future since I had so many opportunities that she took me to see this guy. I had exams coming up, and it was a good way to both distract myself and learn something new. The guy made a total of 7 predictions. I will first mention the ones that happened, without going into details. You can find them in the original post, and then rest that are yet to be. Just to let you know, this guy lives in a tiny village and never traveled outside of it, nor does he have access to the internet. Anyway, here goes. 1. I would get 82% in my exams. Happened. 2. I have problems with my liver. Happened. 3. I would travel to Finland for work at 23 years old, but not before then. Happened. 4. At 28, I will have 1,000 employees under my management. Not happened yet. So now I am 29 and I still do not have anywhere near this many employees under my management, LOL. In fact, my career has taken quite a pivot and I should be transitioning to a public sector, big governmental job soon. This was a tough decision that took a lot of thought and effort, so who knows where this prediction went wrong. But I guess we can count this as not happened. 5. In my entire life, I will travel to Russia only twice. Not happened yet. Due to a political climate between Ukraine and Russia, I haven't traveled to Russia ever yet. I would like to one day, but who knows with the ongoing war. 6. I will marry a blonde woman and will have 2 daughters. Pretty much happened. So, long and behold, I married a blonde woman and have 1 daughter so far. We will definitely have more kids, and it will be interesting to see who the second one is. But it's not like it matters. 7. I will move and live in Finland most of my life. Might happen soon again. Now here is the gist. This new job I was talking about, governmental one, I could choose between 2 countries to be stationed, and one of them was Finland. But despite the prophecy, weighing in all factors, I decided to go with the other one. However, this governmental agency is highly proactive in Finland, and there is a very good chance I might end working there. I guess time will tell. But what a crazy coincidence. So that's that so far. I have not heard from him in these past 4 years, and I don't think my mom either. With the war, who knows where he ended up. But if I have any more updates, I will make sure to let you all know. Story 4. My 27F fiancé's 29M mother gave me abortion pills as an early Christmas present. How on earth do I navigate this situation? I typed the title and proceeded to blank stare at my phone because I can't even process how and why this happened. We were having a sort of an early holiday gathering hosted at his parents' house. It wasn't a small gathering either, and not everyone there knows we're expecting except his brother, mother, and father. Right before I got ready to leave, she gave me a small gift box, which I initially thought was jewelry, and told me to tell her or my fiancé what I think of it. All of this kind of happened in a rush, and there wasn't even a gift exchange between everybody, because it wasn't that kind of a party. But everyone thought she's being sweet to me because we're getting engaged soon. I was honestly tired and opened the gift at home, which is where I saw this wicked woman gave me pills, mifepristone and misoprostol, which are used for medical abortion. I understand she wasn't too happy about the news, and obviously doesn't like me for fuck knows what reason, but kept it civil. So did I. But reaching this level? I genuinely don't know why she doesn't like me when the rest of the family is completely fine with me. I assume it's because of either my ethnicity or she has a superiority complex and believes I'm not good enough for her son because he graduated from a very prestigious university and has been financially privileged his entire life while I haven't been, even though now I earn my own money and we are pretty much equal. I simply don't know. I obviously told him and showed him, and he saw how visibly upset I am, comforted me and said what she says to me doesn't reflect my worth and will talk to her. I don't understand why he do something about it immediately. It has been almost 24 HRS. We are happy about this pregnancy, and even though it wasn't exactly planned, it was welcome if it happened, and that is something him and I have discussed over a year ago. TLDR. At a holiday gathering at my fiancé's parents' house, his mom gave me a small gift box. I thought it was jewelry, but when I opened it at home, it was abortion pills, mifepristone and misoprostol. She knows we're expecting and happy about it, but clearly doesn't approve. I have no idea why she dislikes me enough to pull something like this. I told my fiancé, and while he comforted me and said he'll talk to her, I'm upset he hasn't addressed it immediately and is waiting apparently for the right moment. Edit to those wondering how she could have gotten abortion pills without being pregnant. They can be ordered online and delivered discreetly. You don't have to go to a clinic, or she could have paid someone to get them. Either way, they are accessible, and honestly, I don't give a shit how she acquired them, it's what she did with them. Update. I posted it as a separate post, which you can see on my profile, as this is only an account I created regarding this issue. Relevant. Comment. Commenter 1. I'm kinda surprised your fiancé hasn't gone scorched earth over this. I would think that the right moment to bring up how fucked up this gesture was is like immediately after finding it out. Although maybe your fiancé needs some time to wrap his brain around this. Has he had any contact with his mother since this gift exchange? OOP, he hasn't, not that I know of. I want to bring it up myself, but I am beyond humiliated, and I don't want to be labeled as a hysterical person, especially because she plays everything off as a calm and collected woman, and I know for a fact I will be the one who's being blamed, and she will be the victim. He knows his mother better than I do, however, so I think it is his responsibility to stand up for me. Commenter 2. The right moment, another mama's boy? I'm sorry, OP, this must have been so hurtful. I hope he comes through for you, but he's not off to a very good start. OP. He is not, and I wouldn't even be that upset if he immediately did something instead of waiting. I have seen all kinds of shit that people have been put through, and honestly, yes, it sucks for her that she doesn't want a grandchild, but does his lack of reaction mean he doesn't want a child either? I think him not saying anything to her or to his family is what hurts me. OOP should remove herself from the situation due to MIL possible temping with food. OOP. This was also my first thought as well. If she can go this far, she could have also put them in my food, and it would have looked like a miscarriage since I am still in the first trimester. I am actually scared. I am becoming scared of him as well, because what the fuck? If I were him, I would have thrown them, taken them back, and shown everyone. He did nothing. Commenter 3. Why? She wanted to know what you think. I would take a picture of the abortion pill box and post it in your family chat group. If you don't have one already, just make one. I would write, "Thanks, Grandma, for those, but I won't be needing them. Maybe you can send them back to wherever you got them from to get a refund. I love that you took the time to find me a present, and I hate to say this, but this isn't my taste, and without consulting a doctor could really harm me too. You don't owe her dignity." Edit. I would never ever eat or drink anything near her again. OOP. Yes, I was immediately concerned about what I ate and drank there. I actually threw up, and like I mentioned somewhere in the other replies, I am scared of both of them at the moment. The only positive thing now is I can have an abortion myself and I can leave as it's the first trimester. I don't want to be a single mom, and I would rather make a tough choice to terminate the pregnancy rather than deal with this family's shit. And obviously with my partner that I thought loved me and our child. I think if this doesn't get resolved and talked about, I will miscarry just by the stress of all this. I used to drink to cope, but obviously not now. I need to get myself together and talk to him, but not in the way I already did, crying and coming from an emotional state. Rather, I should talk from a place of logic. He either wants to have a child and life with me or not. No co-parenting, no being a single mom. That was never the plan. I didn't create the baby by myself after all. Update. Wayback Machine. December 9th, 2024. The link above is my previous post, as it's locked now, and I want to thank everyone for their input and support. It means a lot. Genuinely. To start off, I didn't talk to any friends or family. I know the situation best, and I tried to view it from everyone's perspective. To start off, I want to add background to everything so everyone can understand a bit better where I'm coming from. My partner is from a wealthy background, and I am middle class. However, my family has gone through periods when our electricity would be cut, my father doing any job to get vegetables, fruits, and bread. I remember this vividly and am crying and typing, so don't mind my spelling or whatever. While my partner has had everything on a silver platter and had seen the world by the time I had traveled further than neighboring countries. I do remember at the beginning, when I met him, I mentioned an experience of staying at a hostel. He had no idea what that was, and I had to explain. And he was like, "Oh, so like when you go with a school?" Yeah. Anyway, I've traveled a lot staying at hostels and truly loved it, especially when I traveled alone. Met so many amazing people, late-night deep conversations, and at a point I was even convinced I had met my soulmate. On that note, the soulmate person, I dreamt of him last night again. I woke up before I got to speak to him again. My partner, born into wealth where few generations of his family got into one of the top 5 universities in the world, traveled, etc. Fuck him, you get the idea. I decided to do something manipulative. I know it is, probably even illegal, but I had to in order to get him open up. I told him I saw a cool hack on TikTok for a whiskey glass where you freeze water in the glass while it is tilted and it freezes so you don't have to add ice. Whatever, you get the idea, so I told him to try it out, but my main goal was to get him talkative and open up to me. And no, he didn't talk to his mother, but once again, fuck her, this is between us. I asked him if it's good that way, and he said yes, to which I replied, I wish I could try it, but I can't drink alcohol now, and he just laughed. I said, well, maybe I should use your mom's gift, ha ha, to which he only smirked and looked away from me, and I just knew. I just knew something was up. I don't want this to be too long, but his mother is insane. She has kicked him out at the age of 11, and the same day she called the police that he ran away, had threatened with suicide and tried to do it, and is diagnosed with a personality disorder. This is as short as I could make it, because the update isn't about them, honestly. I told him I personally am unsure about having a child, and he told me he would support any decision I would make. So much for a happy father, but yes. I am leaving the country in less than 2 weeks, and I will be having a medical abortion. I don't want to be in this family. Essentially, their opinion is that I am in for the money, which I never even thought about, and I am financially independent. Yes, I do live with him, but I am most definitely able to live without his financial support. The leave is for me to have a break from everything that has happened, and I put actual jewelry in his mom's box, with which the abortion pills came with. It's a break, is what I said to him, because he was in a vulnerable position, and I didn't want to distress him further, but I am leaving and I can most definitely provide for myself, so that's not an issue. In less than 2 weeks, I will be away. Once again, thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me. It has been overwhelming, and I can't reply to everything, but thank you very much for being there for me. Edit. The jewelry I put in the box is the ring which he proposed with. I didn't buy her anything. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. Yeah, he's an asshole. It's better to know before you're forever tied to someone who thinks of you as lesser, but it still fucking sucks. OOP. Yeah. It's funny that he thinks lesser of me when his entire family combined is lesser than me. Objectively, they can't even comprehend what I have gone through and how hard I have worked, worried, sacrificed to be the woman I am today. Commenter 2. I don't see how what you did with the whiskey glass could be illegal. Sure, you were manipulative, but it's not illegal to lie. Otherwise, good on you. Take care of yourself and get people you're close with to support you while you get over this loser. OOP. Because I have been sexually assaulted by someone pouring and pouring alcohol into my glass while knowing my limits. It was in my teenage years, but I know how it was done, so I did something with alcohol. Not doing what has been done to me in any way just to get him to talk in a more relaxed way. I just felt guilty because I had to do that, and it has been done to me to get something out of someone. Commenter 3. Oh, you mean someone intentionally got you drunk to assault you? I'm very sorry this happened, just trying to make things clear because your wording is a bit confusing. From your post, it sounded to me like you gave only one glass to your partner? Was it more? If it's only one and you didn't put any drug into it, there's nothing illegal here. You didn't force him to drink it. It's still manipulative, but like everyone is manipulative in some ways, and here, where you question your future and safety, I'd say it is largely warranted. OOP. No, I didn't force him to do anything. And it was nothing but frozen water in a glass. The bottle was there. I wouldn't fucking drug someone FFS. It was there. He drank, which was my proposition, but I didn't force him to. I just used it WWS something to get him to be more honest, and I didn't force him to drink. Manipulative, yes, in the way I had in mind what I want to get out of him while he is under the influence, but not without his consent. I didn't put anything in his drink, OMG. Story 5. My 38M wife, 35F, lost a lot of weight to gain the attention of her work crush. How do I move forward? After we had our kids, my wife gained a lot of weight, like 80 pounds. And honestly, I was fine with it. I thought she was still hot, and my desire for intimacy never waned. So for a while, she was fine with her weight too. Fast forward 5 years, and all of a sudden, my wife gets really into fitness and nutrition. She buys a Peloton, goes on a strict diet, and loses all the weight, and then some. She looks like she did when I met her in her early 20s. She looks great, but like I said, I thought she looked great heavy, too. Then one day last week, she comes home from work, and I can tell something is really bothering her. I ask what's wrong, but she's just evasive and distant. This lasts a few days before she finally breaks. She tells me that the reason she was so determined to lose weight was because she wanted attention from the guy at work she has a crush on. She said that all the women have a crush on this guy and she just wanted his attention. Well, apparently she got too much of it on the day she came home so upset. He had apparently been flirting with my wife for a few weeks. And that day he asked her if she wanted to have dinner with him after work at a restaurant that just so happens to be in a hotel. He heavily implied that they could get a room afterward or even skip the restaurant and just get room service. She tells me that to this point it was all just fantasy in her head, but now it was real and she snapped out of it. She realized that she'd gone way too far. She declined his invitation, of course, and felt she needed to confess what she'd done to me. I was crushed and still am. First, I'm actually upset, she told me. I know this is some form of cheating, but I didn't suspect anything. She could have just kept this to herself and not pass her burden on to me. So the thought comes to my mind that maybe she wants me to dump her so she can be with this guy. And that's why she is telling me. So I ask her that and she breaks down crying. That's not what she wants. She says she loves me and just wanted to be honest with me and apologize. Nothing physical happened, I'm pretty sure of it. I can track her phone and also have pretty free access to it. She never hides it, leaves it everywhere, and that phone never leaves work. I suppose she could be cheating on her lunch break and leave the phone, but I just don't think she'd leave the phone and not be available for the kids. So I don't think I want to divorce. I love her and we have kids. But it's just eating at me that she did all the work she did to be attractive for another man. I don't know where to go or even what to ask of her. I just need some advice. Relevant comment. Commenter? Were you paying her attention when she was big? My husband never was bothered when I was big, but he didn't ever pay me compliments either. I lost a lot of weight, 60 pounds, KN my own, and he didn't join me on my fitness journey. But he never really celebrated my success either. I'm not suggesting you didn't give her attention, I'm just wondering. I gave her a lot of attention when she was big. I still thought she was hot, so she was getting attention from me but just not anyone else like she used to. Update December 17th, 2024, 8 days later. I want to thank everyone for commenting on my original post. I got some good advice, but above all, I just needed to vent, so thanks for listening. I talked more with my wife after my first post in an attempt to understand why she did what she did. From what she tells me, every woman in the office swoons over this guy. They all flirted with him, my wife included, and he never flirted back. A few of the single ones have basically thrown themselves at him, but still got nothing. So my wife thinks to herself that when she was younger and thinner, she could and did have guys that looked like him chase after her. So she wanted to prove to herself that she still could get the attention of a hot young guy if she wanted. To answer a common question, yes, she was very heavily flirting with him. But she says that he knew she was married, and since she didn't plan on ever being with him alone, it was harmless. Now that I think about it, she was in a great mood in the few weeks prior to her breaking down. She was kind of all over me as well. We hadn't had that much sex in years. She tells me that it wasn't so much the guy at work heating her up, but how his attention made her feel. Which, again, I always given her plenty of attention. Why that wasn't enough to make her feel good about herself, I don't know. And that's really what hurts me most. What I thought of her didn't matter. She says what I thought did matter, but she asked me if she walked past me on the street at her heaviest, would I turn and look? I don't do that with anyone, but I would still have found her attractive. But I guess I see the point she is making. When she was younger, she did get a lot of head turns, and she got used to that. She liked the attention, and when that all went away, it made her depressed. In the end, I think we will be okay. I'll get over this. But as of now, I'm not letting her know that. I told her she needs to go to therapy and work on why she needs this external validation from people she doesn't care about. She agreed to do that. Like I said in my original post, I don't think she did anything physical with him. We have lifestyle 360 and I see where she goes, and she goes straight from home to the office and back every day. She either brings lunch or gets something delivered. I just don't think that happened. I acted cold toward her for a few days. It maybe have been a little cruel, but I wanted her to sweat a little and think I was questioning the relationship. Selfishly, I wanted to see her panic and try to win me back. I felt I needed to see she cares what I think of her. She was a mess, bordering on desperate. She cried a lot, which will eventually broke me. I love her and couldn't stand to see her sad. So in short, she's going to go to therapy and we will do couples counseling down the road. Thanks for all the advice, everyone. Story 6. Am I going to lose my mom's friendship in PCC? Originally posted to on November 7th, 2024. Animal Crossing. Pocket Camp is a mobile game version of Animal Crossing where players can customize their own summer campsite. Players also have the ability to connect to other users online as friends, to exchange gifts, visit each other's campsite, and share in-game resources. Online service for AC Pocket Camp ended on November 28, 2024, and a new paid version called Pocket Camp Complete became available. To stay connected to friends in the new version, both players need to update the AC Pocket Camp app before service ended, and then download and play the new Pocket Camp Complete. Original post. Am I going to lose my mom's friendship in PCC? Hi everyone. I hope this post isn't too morbid, but while I've been excited about Pocket Camp Complete, I've also been very worried about the whole friendship transfer part of it. My mom loved Animal Crossing and used to play Pocket Camp back when it first came out. She passed away 5 years ago, and I always found a little bit of comfort in knowing that I could still visit her camp and have that little part of her available at all times. Am I going to lose that? My understanding is that only friends who have played the 6.0.0 version of Pocket Camp will be transferred to PCC, correct? Is there any way I can save my mom's game data and still have her as a friend on Pocket Camp Complete? Relevant comment. Comment? I'm not sure if there's anything you can do unless you have your mother's phone and can save it through her app. So sorry for your loss, I hope you find out a way. Oh, oop. That's what I thought too. I'm going to have to find her phone and find a way. Thank you for your kind words, X. Comment. Not sure if this would work, but if you have her login info, could you put PC on another device and log in as her? Or possibly get in touch with Nintendo to AAK if they can help. Sorry for your loss. I also lost my mom 5 years ago. It simultaneously feels like yesterday and also forever ago. Ope, I could definitely try both your options. I'm just worried I might not know her Nintendo account info. I'll send an email to Nintendo first thing tomorrow. Thank you for the suggestions. Sorry to hear that you also lost your mom. It's a pain that never truly goes away. I still miss her every day. Sending love your way, X. Comment. I hope so much you can do it. I do know that you will lose her account if you can't access it and transfer it to the new app. And that would require access to her Nintendo login too, or the email address associated with it to reset the password. I hope that's possible for you. If it's not, contact Nintendo. I have no idea if they would help, but it would be worth a shot, and you could use a screen recorder to record video of her campsite and everything, so you always have that memory. OP. Oh, I really like the idea of screen recording her campsite as a last resort. Thank you. Comment. Do you know her login? Could you log into the app using her Nintendo account on a friend's phone and get everything backed up? Then download Complete and transfer her info into the new app? If cost is a barrier, I am happy to send you the money for the second Complete download costs. OP. You are truly so sweet for even offering. Money isn't an issue, thankfully, but you truly are a treasure. I'm not sure she had her ACPC connected to her Nintendo account, which is why I wanted to download the app on her phone and check. But unfortunately, I don't have the password to her iCloud account, so it's a more difficult than anticipated. OOP, update to original post. Thank you all for the kind replies and suggestions. I found my mom's phone, but unfortunately I need her iCloud's password to download ACPC. I have contacted Apple's support to get a hold of her account and reset the password, but I don't think they'll help, considering they will send an email to my mom's iCloud, which I don't have access to. I also contacted ACPC's support via the game app about the issue and asked if they can help me keep my mom's game data. I'll let you know what they tell me. I'll also see if there's someone at Nintendo's support that I can speak to. Update November 21st, 2024, 14 days later. Update. Am I going to lose my mom's friendship in PCC? This is an update from my post from a couple of weeks ago. TLDR. When all else failed, ACPC's wonderful customer service was able to find my mom's save data, and they made it so I could transfer it to a brand new Nintendo account. That way I could download the game to a secondary device and log into my mom's game from there. Now she'll show up in my game as a friend in Whistle Pass. Full version. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you who left advice and kind messages in the previous post. You gave me so many good ideas and, most importantly, the strength to look for a way to save my mom's character in ACPC. So here's the whole story, in case anyone cares or simply wants to know what worked and what didn't. I started by messaging ACPC's in-game customer service, and after a day or so, they gave me a very long list of information they needed to try and retrieve my mom's data, if it was possible at all, stuff like the first time and last time she played, what villagers were in her campsite, what phone she used to play on, etc. I got kind of discouraged because of most of the info they wanted. I had no way of giving to them, like what was her in-game ID number, how many Leaf tickets she had, if she had ever purchased any, and many other things. So I put that on hold for a couple of days and found my mom's last iPhone to see if she still had ACPC installed. Of course she didn't. The App Store required her password to download the game, which I didn't have. And believe me, I tried to guess. I even brainstormed with my family to try and guess it. Someone in the comments of the original post suggested making a Genius appointment and having Apple give me access to her account. So I went to the closest Apple store, but apparently Apple couldn't help with my issue for privacy reasons and told me to contact Apple Care. I went back home kind of defeated, I'm not going to lie, but I wanted to keep trying. I spent the next morning on the phone with Apple Care, and a lovely lady tried everything she could to help me. We were literally on the phone for hours, trying this or that method, stuck in an endless insert password loophole before we gave up. She was lovely, and I really wish I had a way to thank her for actually caring. Basically, Apple has a new system in place with which you can register someone as your heir, and that person will get access to your Apple devices in case of your death. It's a new system. My mom couldn't have had it set up, so all I could do was ask a courthouse for a document stating that I was in fact my mom's heir and had valid reasons to want access to her account. This would take money and time, both of which I couldn't really waste, without even mentioning that unfortunately I don't think mine would be seen as a valid reason to make such a request. I tried to request ownership of my mom's iCloud by putting the wrong password in as many times as I could, saying I couldn't remember it and couldn't access her mail nor her phone to reserve it. But the process could have taken weeks, and Apple informed me that, for privacy reasons, they would have had to initialize her iPhone if I did get access to her iCloud, and I really didn't want to lose all the pictures she had on her phone, the messages, and all her other things. I was really upset with Apple for making it so difficult. I understand why they have to be super cautious with these things, but still. At this point, I decided to give the long list ACPC support had sent me a proper try, and I was able to send them a very limited number of answers to their numerous questions. This was my last resort, and after a couple of days they replied by asking for some of the information I had already sent. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get my mom's ACPC account back. I kind of felt like I was talking to a bot right now. Why would they ask for the same information twice otherwise? I tried to be more detailed with my answer, and somehow that worked. I wasn't talking to bots. I was actually talking to at least two wonderful people at ACPC's customer support, Stella and Marcio. Marcio managed to get my mom's data, by some miracle considering how little info I could give them, and they asked me to make a brand new Nintendo account so that they could link my mom's saved data to it. And so I did. I asked my brother to download ACPC on his phone, linked the brand new Nintendo account to which my mom's save data was now on, and yes, it worked. I got access to my mom's account and I almost cried because of it. I sent Stella and Marcio a thank you email because their help was so precious to me, more than they will probably ever realize. And in a way, this is my thank you email to all of you who encouraged me to try. Kindness and compassion always go a long way, and this is yet another proof of that. Thank you. See you in Pocket Camp Complete. Next day edit. Thank you all so much for commenting and caring about me. The amount of you who have genuinely cared about this situation is unbelievable. Some of you kept me in their prayers, their thoughts, and sent positive energy my way. I have no words to express how much that means to me, and I'm sure all of you are also to thank if this situation got a happy ending. I really wish I could reply to each and every one of you, but just know that I am reading every single comment and keeping it close to my heart forever. This is a wonderful community, and I'm glad to be part of it. Story 7. I intentionally got my coworker, who has autism, fired. So I work in the IT department for company, and I have had a coworker with autism named X. A bit of background: X was a very good worker. He got all of his projects done on time, and the quality was amazing. Sure, he wasn't the fastest coder, but he wasn't the slowest at coding either. He was consistently a top performer. However, he did not have very good social skills. He would always share the code with us and work with the rest of us on projects. But when we had meetings to discuss problems with our projects, X would never bring up any of his errors. He would only assist with ours. This made him look like some whiz, and the managers loved him. But he can't be 100% perfect, right? He also refused to go on any outings with us. Whenever we'd want to watch a game together, go to the bar, or even go out for lunch, X would always back out. For some reason, I got very annoyed at this. I kept thinking, and soon believing, that he felt like he had better things to do than spend time with his coworkers. He only did work, he would not do anything social with us, and he rarely brought up his work problems. I know this is really stupid, but in my mind, I hated how he refused to communicate with us. Eventually, I grew to really hate X, so I hatched a plan. I sit in the desk right behind X, so it was easy for me to swing around and access his computer. It's a pretty secluded area, so I was easy to be stealthy as well. When I started, I just did small things. As soon as X went to the bathroom or to get something from the vending machine, I would go in and modify his code slightly so that it wouldn't run properly. I'd add a letter or delete a letter so it would be a pretty tedious fix. I don't think X suspected any foul play, though. He never mentioned it to anyone. When he'd try to run his final project, it would go haywire, and he'd spend a lot of time going back to find his mistake. He was really persistent at solving his own problems himself. Eventually, I think management stared to notice a decrease in his work, and they pulled him aside for a quick meeting. When he returned, he did not look happy, but he did not say anything to any of us. He just sat down and got to work. I tried to ask about the impromptu meeting the managers just had with him, but he just brushed it off. He'd go, "Oh, it was nothing, just more information about the project." Again, I don't know why, but I really despised him for that. A couple of weeks go by, and I continued to slightly harm his code. Then I got a brilliant idea that would reveal he is capable of error to everyone. He had just gotten assigned to a special project, and I couldn't resist myself. I waited for a time when he went away from his desk, and I opened his email portal. I sent an altered and incomplete file to the next development team for the final assembly. I then deleted the sent mail from his box and went on with my day. Honestly, I wasn't too familiar with the specifics of what he was working on, but apparently the stuff I altered did some major damage. When the other team tried to run their finished product, it kept crashing and showing numerous errors. This caused some major delays, and when they finally tracked it down to X's code, management was not happy at all. X was given a week and a half to write and prefect his portion, and I sent out the file on day 5. Management came over to our desk area, and X was very, very confused. They kept asking X why he sent it out so early, and why he didn't check anything over. I heard it all, but I just kept my mouth shut and listened in on their conversation. I assumed he'd just get a slap on the wrist, but apparently they decided that his work quality was continuing to fall below standards and that they needed to let him go. Company would not be allowing so many errors. X didn't even get a chance to voice his opinions. Management was so unhappy and terminated him immediately. I could have turned around and told them everything, but I couldn't. I didn't have the courage. I feared that I might lose my job. I know I did a really terrible thing to X, but I couldn't afford to lose my job. I feel terrible. And to add on to it, I later learned that X is autistic. I didn't even know. Apparently, he was just really antisocial. He probably didn't harbor any negative thoughts about the rest of us. It was just that social interaction wasn't something he enjoyed. I'm sure he made mistakes, but he was just such a hard worker that he didn't show it at all. He would want to solve problems himself instead of immediately seeking for help like the rest of us. It's too late now, but I really appreciate X, and I hate myself so much for causing this. I had an urge to get this off of my chest, but even after typing all of this, I still feel so guilty. I keep thinking about all of the harm I caused X. I might have ruined his life. I didn't want that. I'm thinking of coming clean to management this week. X deserves the job more than anyone else. It's been less than a week since he got fired. They can still take him back if he's willing to come back, right? Thanks for listening to my story, I guess. TLDR, I was an idiot and messed with my coworker's code. Management got mad at his errors and fired him. Guilt stays with you forever. Top comment. Dying_soul 666. You may have ruined someone's life because you were a petty bitch. If you don't come clean, you'll never forgive yourself. and the guilt will est you from the inside out for the rest of your life. You need to tell management ASAP. Relevant comment? PM me your passion. All right, there's a lot of hate, but I'm just glad you see your mistake. Yeah, come clean and all that. You already said you would, so hopefully you are, and it takes a lot of courage to come clean, so props to you. Another good thing to do would probably be to contact this ex-guy and apologize. But that may not go well, and that'd take even more courage, so you may want to just have your boss or whoever contacts him to say there was a mistake to tell them, but IDK your choice. Oh, yeah, I am going to tell X and apologize personally too. He didn't deserve to be hurt by my idiotic mistake, and I want him to know the truth. Edit. I know. This was really stupid of me. I deserve the hate. I understand nothing can undo the damage I caused, but I'm going to come clean tomorrow morning and beg management to give X his job back. Edit 2. I told X in the company. X got his job back with a raise and I got fired. Read it here. Update July 2nd, 2018. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, here's the link. Recap. I messed with my coworker's work and he got fired. I felt a lot of guilt. Anyways, I went into work today and I had a long meeting with the management. I explained everything that happened and all of the bad things that I did. I told them everything. How I changed X's code and emailed a bad file to the other development team. I also begged them to give X his job back. I told them that X really does have a high standard of excellence. I explained how even though X may face a problem, he would work harder by himself to get it right. He is so much more determined and driven than anyone else at the office. Well, they listened to my story and gave X a call. I don't know how badly X was affected by this ordeal, but he was very glad to be invited back. Apparently management didn't truly understand how great of a worker X was either. After I told them about how determined X is, and after getting testimonials from other co-workers, management decided to raise X's salary. When he came in, I had apologized immensely to him, and I tried to express how bad I felt. I knew that no apology could repair the damage I did, but I just wanted him to know I was sorry. He might really hate me inside, but he did not show it at all. He ended up forgiving me. I know I didn't deserve to be forgiven, but this just makes me respect X even more. What I did was terrible, and I got what I deserved. I was terminated today, effective immediately. I don't know what I will do now that I am jobless, but at least I have a somewhat cleared conscience, knowing that X is back doing what he is so good at. Hate all you want, but I think I amended some of the damage. TLDR told management about what I did and apologized to X. X got his job back with a raise. I got fired. Story 8. Me, 22M with my EX, 23F 8.5 years. She left and came back. We started dating in 8th grade. We went to high school and college together and dated the entire time. We graduated college this summer. After college, she gets into grad school in our hometown, 6 hours away from our college town. And I have already accepted a job in our college town. We agree that I will move to our hometown in 1 year, put in a work transfer, so we can live together during her second and final year of grad school. She stays with her family for the summer before grad school starts, this past June-September, and so during this time we are long distance. She becomes noticeably irritable and distant. She comes to visit me in our college town where I have been working after a couple months and says we should take a break while she goes to grad school. I fall apart crying and she changes her mind. A couple weeks later, she starts texting me saying she doesn't feel like talking to me anymore and that she loves me but isn't in love with me. This is all through text message. I ask to call her and she allows me to a few hours later. I told her it would hurt me too much to ever speak to her again and that I forgive her and say a final goodbye. I fell apart, of course. I miss work for a week. I'm completely unstable for over a month. I don't eat or sleep really at all. She makes no effort to contact me for 10 weeks. Then suddenly when I'm starting to heal and accept that she isn't the one for me, etc., she begins contact. She tells me over Facebook not talking is too hard for her. I delete the message with no reply. She tries texting 4 days later and I block her number. 3 days after that, she has her brother contact me. That's when she cracks. It is finals week in her first quarter of grad school, and she drives 6 hours the night before her final to tell me she made a huge mistake. This occurred this Wednesday. I told her I don't believe her and that she needs more time to think about what she really wants and if it's me she wants. I told her I was skeptical and don't believe she loves me, pointing out that she said she wasn't in love with me. She doesn't remember saying that and claims that she has spent weeks thinking about it and regrets her decision. During our time apart, she said she went on one terrible date and did not leave for another guy. However, I am scared that she is just lonely nostalgic and will leave me again when she gets bored. She tells me it's not nostalgia and she learned her lesson. I tell her to take a couple more months to think about it and decide if it's really me that she loves. I also tell her how hard the breakup was on me and proceed to condemn our 8.5-year relationship. I told her I had to demonize her and the relationship in order to move on and laid out all the flaws. I then told her how great my life was becoming. I now go to the gym every day, have gotten new hobbies, and am way more social with friends. What do I do here, guys? Thanks. TL.dar. We dated 8.5 years and she dumps me over text. 10 weeks later, after complete no contact, she is desperate for me to take her back. What do I do? Update January 26th, 2019, 2 years later. Hi guys, I came to this sub out of desperation 2 years ago, and I have an update on my thoughts and feelings since then. I, 24M, dated my ex, 24F, from ages 13, 21, 8th grade until college graduation. Let's call her Lily. Lily left me after she got into an Ivy League grad school in September 2016. See link to original post above. I was in shock and in some ways still am. She starts contacting me again in early November 2016. I ignore. She showed up unannounced at my apartment, having driven 300 miles from her grad school to where I now live and work. She apologized and tried to reunite. I built up walls already and told her politely no thanks, despite desperately wishing we were still together. I was so broken and sad that her arrival at my apartment enhanced the fantasy that maybe we could work it out. After all, I spent my formative years loving this person and yearned for her. She was my whole world still. I call Lily and ask to meet again around Thanksgiving since we will both be back in our hometown. We meet, and after I ask specifically, Lily admits she slept with someone. I reply that I'm not interested in reuniting. We both go home grieving. Having grown up with Lily's parents and loving them as my own, I get Lily's mother to confess separately to me that Lily tried to contact her prospective new plaything after they slept together, and the new guy told her to get lost, confirming my hunch that I'm Lily's fallback plan. Lily never admitted this to me, but she did later admit that when she left me she had already been asked out by this new guy, and that she wanted to say yes, so she dumped me. The pain is too much. I block her on everything. She tries to make contact several times, and I don't respond. My mother dies mid-January 2017. When my father calls Lily's mother to share the news, Lily's mother tells my father that Lily is in a severe depression and has left grad school. I'm lonely and grieving and still in love with Lily, so I visit the day after my mother's funeral. By January, Lily has lost nearly 20 pounds. She was already thin and is borderline catatonic. I go back to my apartment 300 miles away, as conflicted as ever. She's in so much pain. Maybe she loves me? Is the narrative that permeates my brain even today. I never took her back, but I never stopped yearning for her. It has been 2 years since all of this happened, and I still wonder if I made the right choice. I think I did, but I also have this tremendous amount of pessimism about people around me. I don't trust my judge of character anymore when I realize the girl I believe to be an angel can abandon me and then come back and try to use me. I've still never met anyone as beautiful as Lily, at least on the inside. Lily and I have agreed to meet twice since then, and both times were extremely unpleasant. The first being a superficial show of who is more moved on, and the second was me expressing regret over wishing I was a better man throughout the relationship. The ex ended up going back and completing grad school, graduating on time June 2018. I still haven't replaced the hole in my life where Lily was. I push away people because I know they will hurt me. If a girl like Lily can cut me so deeply, the kindest soul I have ever met, then everyone else surely will. I'm still lost, and for all I know she is too. I know what she did is completely selfish and gross, but it can't overwrite all the good she did throughout my formative years. I am in no contact with Lily, but I love and miss her in my life. I'm wondering how to live life without her, when even when I'm in bed with another woman, I miss the trust and level of connection I had with Lily. No one knows more about me. No one knows more about her. TLDR. Woman of my dreams and first love left me and tried to come back and use me as a fallback. Still miss my best friend. Still question myself and ability to trust others. Still think of her every day. Still wonder how she feels about me. Relevant comment? Travel bug 898. It sounds like you need therapy, OP. Have you ever considered it? Is it available to you? OP. I have tried 2 therapists. Neither have worked. Travel bug 898. So, finding the right therapist can be like finding the right relationship partner. It can take a few tries to find one that is effective for you. Just because the first 2 therapists weren't your cup of tea doesn't mean you should stop looking. You sound like you have a lot of shit to work through, and that isn't just magically going to happen by itself. OP. I'm currently seeing the second just so I have someone to vent to, but I will seek a third then. Top comment. Kiki Canuck, it seems like you've accorded this woman, and your relationship with her, some kind of mythical status in your life. You're continuing to live your life almost as a reaction to this transformative moment. It's understandable, but it's also quite limiting, and ties your past like an anchor around your present and future. Lily is neither an angel nor a demon. She's just a woman who loved you and then wasn't sure, and ultimately ended the relationship in ways that hurt you both. That sucks, but relationships end. Even ones that were once good. Even ones where there is a lot of love. Relationships end, and people hurt each other, but it doesn't make the whole relationship a lie. And it doesn't doom every relationship that comes after it unless you let it by continuing to give it this power over you. Stop debating her motivations. You will never truly 100% know what she was thinking, or how she felt at any given moment, or how much she regrets her actions, etc. Don't drive yourself crazy, and don't chase clarity that you can't have, and which may or may not help even if you could have it. Likewise, stop debating with yourself over whether you made the right decision. Instead, just accept that a decision was made. You stuck to your guns when a lot of people would have folded, and there are likely good reasons for that. The decision is made and is in the past. Leave it there and focus on your future. You mentioned that you've seen therapists and haven't found it helpful, but maybe you should try again. Speak to a few until you find a right fit. Consider someone who is familiar with CBT, and work to reset the thought loop that carries you back again and again to this painful event that offers you no clarity. You don't owe this relationship or the breakup the mental real estate you're giving it right now. Don't spend another 2 years looking back. Story 9. Last weekend I, 36F, drunkenly flashed my husband's 31M friends, and he still can't let it go. I've apologized and promised to not drink again. What more can I do? It's nearly 6 a.m. here, and he has yet again woke me up at 2 a.m. to tell me how much he hates me and how disappointed he is in me. Last Saturday, I went out to lunch with friends. I've probably only ever been drunk 10 times in my whole life, and this is one of them. I wasn't terribly drunk, but I was definitely tipsy. It was about 4 p.m. when I got home, and my husband's had 2 friends round watching football with him. My phone was dying, so I went to get the charger, which was plugged in near the TV, and I was blocking it as I struggled to reach the charger. They were playfully telling me to get out of the way and booing me when one of them said, "Move your arse, we're trying to watch the match." And I genuinely don't know what came over me, as I've never done anything like this before, but I turned around and pulled my top and bra down and said, "Watch these instead." I feel so embarrassed just writing that. They all sat there in shock, and there was an awkward couple of seconds of silence, and then I just left the room as quickly as I could, without my charger. After they left, my husband came upstairs and was screaming and shouting at me that I embarrassed him, cheated on him, he hates me, he insulted my looks and age a few times, which I won't repeat here. I just kept apologizing and said I'd make it up to him. The next day, I again said sorry. and I would leave if that's what he wanted, or I'd do anything to make it up to him. He ended up writing me a list of things I had to do to make it up to him. The list was, don't drink. I can handle that, as like I said, I don't drink anyway. Delete his 2 friends who were round off social media. I did that. Do all the cooking and cleaning for a month, okay? Message the girlfriends of the friends telling them what I did and apologize. I did that, neither really cared. Sleep in the spare room until he wants me back in bed with him. I've done the things he asked. But every night he's woken me up shouting at me and name-calling me. This morning I told him enough's enough, and to either let me sleep and start to move past it, or I'll go live with my mum until he decides whether he wants me or not. I know it's only been a week and it's my fault, but I don't know how much more I can take. Was I harsh to say I'd leave, and can I do more to make him feel better? TLDR. I drunkenly flashed my husband and his friends. I've tried to make it up to him, but it's not enough. Relevant comment. Commenter 1. That is a small betrayal. He doesn't own your body. He is now being incredibly abusive to get back at you. OP. My friend said that, but at the same time I'm in the wrong. I'm confused. Lack of sleep isn't helping. Commenter 2. Yeah, no. You messed up and he took less than a week to turn it into an excuse to be abusive. This is about enjoying punishing you, not what you've done. OP. He's never done anything like this before, though, so it feels like it's my fault and I've driven him to it. I can't be woken up by having someone shine a torch on me and scream in my face again, though. I'm so tired but scared to sleep. OOP should get therapy to deal with any unresolving issues. OOP. I have suggested therapy and he just said I don't need it, you do, for being a slag. Commenter 3. Yeah, the punishment massively outweighs the crime. Is he usually like this? OP, he's very tit for tat. I got COVID a couple of years ago and was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and as soon as I was out, the first thing he said when I got home was that he'd done all the housework for the last 2 weeks, so now it's my turn. When I got a new car after a promotion, he said it's not fair and he should get a new car too. Commenter 4. Him being angry with you makes total sense. I'd be livid in his shoes too. And it's reasonable for him to ask you to stop drinking since you can't handle your liquor. However, him waking you up in the middle of the night and screaming at you, insulting you, and tacking on ridiculous unrelated punishments, like having you do all the cooking and cleaning for a month, is taking this way too far. You having done something bad doesn't give him license to just treat you however he feels. You're his wife, for God's sake. He shouldn't want you to feel like shit forever. Update, undit, December 15th, 2024. The night after I made this post, he yet again woke me up shouting and shining a torch in my face, so I'd had enough and went to my mum's. While there, he was constantly texting me, abusing and calling me names, so I blocked him, and then he started sending things to my mum. I went back to the house to discuss things with him and see if he wants to work on things or end things. He opened the door, and once I was in, he pushed me in the back to the floor, calling me a slag. As I tried to get back up, he kicked back down and again called me slag. I got up and said, "You're being fucking stupid. None of this is appropriate for 1 second of a boob flash." He turned around and punched me in the mouth. There was nothing dramatic after that. I just turned around and walked back out. I've saved the pictures of my lip and the messages from him afterwards calling me and saying it's the least I deserve, etc. I'm at my mum's now, and after the new year, I will ask him for a divorce and tell him that we either split fairly and quickly, or I'll ring the police. Some of his friends also found my original post and have been messaging me, calling me names for airing his business in public. Hello, friends, if you read this. All this over 1 second of boobs. And for the people asking how I'd like it if he did it. He's always topless, and for those comparing my boobs to genitals, I'd laugh if he willy-coptered around the room because it's quite big, so it would look funny ELOL. TLDR. He punched me in the mouth, so I've left him. Relevant comment. Downvoted commenter. I have not read the original post. That being said, based on what you said here, I can understand why he is upset. You don't seem to think what you did is a big deal, which is weird, but it is what it is. However, being upset does not make it okay for him to physically or verbally abuse you. It doesn't matter what you did. Abuse is never okay. It's good that you've decided to leave permanently. That is the only way forward. There is no going back or fixing things once he puts his hands on you. OP, I apologized 1,000,000 times. Commenter 2. Don't hold the police in reserve. Go straight to them. Then divorce him. Commenter 3. Go to the police immediately and don't ask him for divorce. Force the divorce through. He deserves all the consequences that are coming. Story 10. Ada for telling my husband that our kids won't be forced to watch superhero and geeky movies? Let's get one thing out of the way right off the bat. I, F28, and my husband, M30, both love superhero movies and other traditionally geeky things. That's actually the entire reason we had started dating. We both like comics, superhero movies, video games, etc. He gave me a limited edition Batman Who Laughs statue this year for our anniversary. Our daughter, F6, and son, M4, both like to have movie nights with us, where we let them choose whatever movie their heart so desires that we own, and we watch it together as a family. This past time, they both decided on Barbie Swan Lake, and my husband spent most of the time huffing and puffing, just showing general displeasure. Our kids tried to enjoy it, but after the movie they apologized to their dad for picking something he didn't like before scrambling off to bed. I asked him what was wrong, seeing if he didn't want to watch one of the old Barbie movies, or if he just was upset because of work today when he suddenly turned around and harshly asked, "When are we going to have them start watching good movies? Like Avengers or, hell, even Justice League?" I attempted to joke like we usually do, saying, "I thought we didn't talk about Justice League," with obvious amusement, even chuckling slightly. Now, I know it might have made me seem like I was uncaring to his opinion, but I don't think it warranted his next response. They are old enough to sit down and watch these far better movies than whatever trash you grew up with. I'll admit, I kind of froze at that. He had never said such things about my childhood movies, and I was taken aback by it. I tried explaining to him that I'd rather they choose to watch the movies as they please, letting them make their own choices into whether or not they'd like to watch these things. The same way I give them free choice of it, they would like to read my comics or not. Only ones off limits are the disturbing, scary, or adultish ones. Or the same way I give them free choice of whether or not they'd like to play some of my video games with me. My son and I have a shared Minecraft world while my daughter and I play Animal Crossing. My husband doesn't let them borrow his comics, often telling them off for even asking, and refuses to play games with them. He said that he'd rather he have something in common with his kids other than just a bloodline. But I had responded by saying I'd rather they discover what they like on their own, and in their own time. So, please, put me in my place if I'm wrong. Am I the asshole? Verdict: removed before verdict rendered, but heavily NTA in the comments. Relevant comment. PJ Fonry, NTA. Your husband sounds like the child in this entire exchange. First and foremost, saying that a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old are old enough for the MCU or Justice League is questionable at best. If he wants to introduce your kids to superheroes, there are kid-friendly versions they may enjoy. But I can't think of a single movie in the MCU that would be remotely appropriate for a 4- or 6-year-old. I agree with the idea of not forcing them into an interest just because he likes it. Let them grow up to be who they want to be with the interests they have. Instead of trying go force them into what he likes, your husband would be better served finding common ground with their interests. OP. This isn't the first time he's disapproved of a movie they've picked out either. They chose Lego Batman a while ago, and after the movie he talked with the kids about how it ruins Batman's characterization and how this is such a misrepresentation. My 4-yo didn't like that Babs was Bruce's love interest because, and I quote here, she is in love with Nightwing. His words, not mine. Tofu_Deluxe. How it ruins Batman's characterization and how this is such a misrepresentation. What, like every other comic run of Batman? I'm sorry, OP, but your husband is coming off as a fake fan, one who gatekeeps their idea of genre/character/franchise while admonishing anyone who doesn't share their views. OP. He does tend to pick and choose characterization of him from different runs, but I do that same exact thing to match my perception of Red Hood. But I support my kids in creating opinions about my favorite character, and often share my thoughts with them. Urbanspy 87. NTA. For being a parent, your husband doesn't seem to know much about kids. You seem like you are doing a great job listening to your kids, while also joining in interests like video games. What does your husband do with the kids? OOP. He helps our daughter with her homework, as he claims he got better scores than me in school, and he often takes our son out for son-dad dates. He takes our daughter out for daddy-daughter dates. Other than that, I've never really seen him fully hang out with the kids. It's always me, but I've always chalked that up to him working. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure anymore. Urban Spy 87. Some people aren't as good as make-believe kid play, I get that, but if he's a video game guy, why hasn't he played Mario Kart with the kids or something? OP. He only ever plays horror games with them and refuses Mario Kart, simply because in the past, noticeably in his teenage years, he threw the control because he lost. He doesn't want to scare the kids if they win. Woodland Tum. But he's okay scaring the kids with horror video games? OP. I've tried getting him to play more age-appropriate things with them, but he refuses. He plays the so-not-scary-it's-funny games with them, but I'd honestly prefer it if he didn't play any scary games with them. OP added info in the comments. Added info October 2nd, 2022. Okay, so I've had quite a few commonly asked questions here, so I'm going to try and answer them. Why not take turns choosing movies between adults and children? My husband and I agreed on this system before this happened. We agreed that it would help them with decision-making and help them realize that sometimes their choices won't necessarily be something they like, and that's completely okay. Our initial goal was attempting to provide a safe environment for them to make these decisions. Has this happened before? Once. With Lego Batman because he didn't like Bruce's characterization in it. Why wait until Saturday to talk with him? I have severe anxiety and like to have backup plans in case it all goes up on the air. I also like to try and have a preconceived notion of what I will say, though my ADHD abhors that idea. On top of that, both kids are going to be out of the house. If he tries again before then, he's getting kicked out of the house with my name on the mortgage and not allowed back until he can apologize. Kids' favorite comics? So far, my son loves Tim's Robin Run, while my daughter likes my Nightwing comics. We're waiting to see if they like anything else that I have, or if we may need to buy some stuff that they're interested in. OP updated October 3rd, 2022. Next day, same post. Update. To say that I am pissed is an understatement. I'm writing this from my son's room after he woke up screaming from a nightmare that he refuses to tell me about. There were no horror games today. I'll wait until my daughter is at school and my son is at daycare, and then I'm kicking him out. My children are afraid, and their fear overrides my own of confrontation. My son's eyes keep darting towards our bedroom door, that's how I can tell. Naturally, I'm not divorcing him. I'm putting distance between him and my kids. If he can't apologize to them for his treatment of their interests and refuses to talk about it, then divorce may be something we have to consider. I don't like having to consider it by any means, but I'd rather my kids sadly have divorced parents than grow up like me. Relevant comment. Madam Ash _ The update is super confusing. So is he abusing them? Why is the kid so afraid, and what does it have to do with husband? Boop. I don't know what happens when I'm at work and he's alone with the kids, but I can tell he's scared of my husband, and that's enough for me. This absolute gem of a comment. Chemistry Fan 29. Please tell me he works in physics so I can call him Sheldon Cooper and you're Amy. Off that note, your husband is being a pain, and you are doing the right thing putting them first. OP. He's a manager at a local family fun center. I'm an accountant. Story 11. A hard-boiled detective saga as OOP is in a race against time to discover who keeps farting up their high-powered business deal. I work in upper-middle management at a large business and entertainment events company, and recently we got back to regular face-to-face client meetings. Over the last few weeks, we've been having some intense and lengthy meetings in our office with a potential local client, which could really take our company to the next level if it works out. However, a rather awkward problem has arisen. During these meetings, which tend to last all afternoon, someone breaks wind, silently, usually more than once. The odor is, frankly, overwhelming, yet there is not much in the way of any clear reaction from anyone in the room. I have noticed some people very, very discreetly eye each other suspiciously. But it's quite a formal and stiff atmosphere, with several very serious and no-nonsense senior executives present from both sides, so it appears if people are just doing their best to ignore this rude interruption. During one of the wind-breaking incidents, a junior member of staff sat with her elbow on the table and put her hand over her hand and mouth, trying to make it look like she was just resting her head, while another junior member looked uncomfortable but kept her head down and stared at her notepad. On another occasion, I noticed one of the clients frowning and looking out of the corner of their eye, but frankly I dare not catch anyone's eye, so I always quickly avert my gaze to avoid any awkwardness or, God forbid, suspicion. Everything at our company is businesslike, and relations are generally good. I know everyone reasonably well on our side, so I had assumed the culprit was from the would-be clients team. But imagine my horror when, after the clients had left our last meeting, leaving our team to continue the discussion among ourselves, the silent boardroom fodder struck again. I was incredulous. There were 3 senior male executives in the room and 2 junior female members of staff who were not always present at other meetings, so I am fairly certain the culprit is a senior management figure at our firm. I'm completely at a loss as to how to deal with this. I'm quite ambitious and have invested a lot of energy into making this project happen. So I can't believe that a senior company member is behaving in such a rude manner and potentially jeopardizing it by acting so unprofessionally towards potential partners. The potential clients cannot have possibly failed to notice the smell, and I can only assume they are simply being polite and professional by ignoring it. However, I am just afraid that there are limits to anyone's tolerance, and that sooner rather than later they will decide it one way or another to end their interest in working with us. This is just such a strange problem. How on earth can voice my concerns to my superiors? Update. July 26, 2021. Thought I would give an update on the farting in the boardroom story of a little while back, as the issue did not go away, and things turned out a lot differently than how I expected. So there were another 5 meetings. The farting continued. In some meetings it was worse than others. It did seem that those scheduled in the morning were less gassy affairs, although by no means did attendees enjoy fresh air for the entire duration of those. Despite the regular bouts of nostril-burning flatulence wafting throughout the room, it became clear we were going to be working with this client on a long-term basis, and the atmosphere grew a little more relaxed accordingly. On one occasion near the end of a meeting, someone cracked a very funny joke, which provoked an outburst of communal laughter, during which someone, presumably involuntarily, let out an audible fart. It was short, not very loud, and if anyone noticed it, they didn't let on. However, whilst I couldn't be sure if everyone heard it, it was certainly smelt by everyone. The eye-wateringly foul stench wiped the smiles off some faces and replaced the amused expressions of a few others with frowns. This seemingly brought this particular meeting to a slightly premature end, as the most senior member of the client team rose to his feet and said without a hint of irony, "Well, that's probably as good a note as any to end on for today." It was unclear if he was referring to the funny joke cracked moments earlier or the fart. Indeed, he seemed a very sharp individual who probably realized it was a perfect moment for ambiguity. But I have to admit the sight of everyone's eyes darting around the room as people tried to gauge each other's reactions to try and figure out exactly what he meant was an amusing one. But not as amusing as moments later watching senior management leaning over the table exchanging farewell platitudes and shaking hands, whilst yet another stinking fart assaulted everyone's noses. It got to the point where people let their guard down a bit and became a little less restrained in hiding their reactions. An electric fan mysteriously appeared in the corner of meeting room one day, but it wasn't used for the first meeting it appeared in, probably as it was an early morning affair with limited silent and deadly emissions. But during one particularly gassy afternoon episode a week later, one of the clients, a younger female, was sat with the corners of her mouth pointing downwards and using a piece of A4 to fan the air, trying to make it look like she was just trying to cool her face. Our director saw this and asked the junior member sitting nearest the new fan to "Switch it on, please, seems it's getting a little hot in here," with a completely straight face. On the fan went, but the speed was set on a higher speed than anticipated, and all that happened was pieces of paper, meeting notes, and a newspaper were blown off the table and flew around the room along with the familiar pungent stench. Thankfully, this was laughed off, and I took advantage of the interruption to suggest a break, as we left the office juniors to clear up the chaos. During the unplanned interval, I noticed our most senior executive had hung back to help reorganize the room. This was most out of character, but it turned out he just wanted to get the newspaper, which had been blown inside out. Seconds later, he emerged from the room and walked towards the gaggle of us who were drinking coffee and chatting in the open plan area outside the meeting room. He radiated a beaming smile as he strode right past everyone in the direction of the men's restroom with the newspaper tucked under his arm. Seeing that he didn't return to the meeting room for a good 10 minutes after everyone else had, it didn't take Sherlock Holmes to deduce why he had been so eager to get his hands on some reading material. This brazen and unashamed approach to bathroom business quickly led me to place him in the #1 position on the silent boardroom farter suspect list. I also especially noted there were no more silent but deadly interruptions for the remainder of that meeting, which went on for a further 3 hours or so. During our very last meeting, which was to seal the deal, there was an awkward culture clash. We work in a multinational office in a major Asian city. English is the working language, and between us and the client team everyone speaks English fluently, but there is a varying mix of comprehension of our host country's language. All of our senior executives are Westerners and unable to converse in the local language. I'm not a local, but I'm fluent in the local lingo. During the meeting, 2 maintenance men wearing overalls entered the room and announced they were responding to a report of a fault in the ventilation system. But both the workers were not fluent in English, so I did some on-the-spot interpretation, to which our most senior executive replied, "Please tell the janitors the air con and ventilation system are working fine. We have important business to conclude today." I duly interpreted. But the workman, not at all concerned with the subtleties of boardroom etiquette, bluntly replied in the local vernacular, "There's no ventilation problem. It smells like shit in here," which basically caused the half of the room who could understand to laugh and the other half to respond with smiles and looks of curiosity as to what exactly was said. Thinking on my feet, I didn't translate anything back to my side, but urged the maintenance guys to come back in a few hours because it was a really important meeting and we really had to get on with it. It was a ruse which seemed to impress the client executive, who is also fluent in that language, and offered my side a way to continue without drawing more attention to the constant bad smells than was necessary. The deal ended up being signed off, and it was decided both teams would go out for dinner and drinks to celebrate. Sure enough, the drinks flowed, and both sides let their hair down as the night drew on. Whilst chatting with one of the clients, someone of similar level to myself, and with a few drinks in me, I couldn't help but bring up the farting issue. The client replied, "Oh, that was our boss. We're so sorry about that. He's a great guy, but sits there in our office telling dick and fart jokes all day. He says it's an example of thinking out of the box to make our team more relaxed, comfortable with each other. So after each meeting, we were telling him to quit passing gas. He would deny it each time, but the whole thing had just become a running joke for our team, so we just rolled with it. Sorry?" Very surprised by this revelation, and at the level of humor coming from such an otherwise professional and serious team, I felt it best to just laugh it off and not reveal real source of the reek. But emboldened by this, days later I ran into our senior executive's PA, who was usually in the meetings, and asked her straight up if the guy had a wind problem. "Oh yeah," she replied. "I'm glad my desk is outside. He just sits and farts in his office room all day and just doesn't care." I ended up feeling like I was the one who had the problems all along. A keener sense of smell than most, not especially amused by fart jokes, and a little naive. Seniority level and attitude to public farting are not necessarily linked. Some interesting comments discussing the reveal. So there were 2 farters? Fart twist! A Shyamalan-worthy twist indeed. Wait, I thought that the OP's senior executive was the farter. But the client's team assumed that their boss was the farter because he tells fart jokes all day as some sort of management technique, which is a whole other world of hurt. So the client's team's boss is being falsely accused of being the farter. Rereading it, you could be totally right. OP says, "I felt it best to just laugh it off and not reveal real source of the reek." So she probably shares your interpretation. On the other hand, The client seemed very sure of themselves, and the fact that boss denied it doesn't really mean anything. Or does it? Would someone like that simply be delighted in speaking of his farting endeavors after the fact? I see this whole thing remains mysterious. The client team probably assumed he didn't want to admit to farting in an important meeting, and they just didn't believe him because he'd cried fart too many times before. So the OP was mortified about her boss farting, but it turns out the client thought it was coming from their side. This is insane. What are the chances both bosses were in on it and having a fart battle to the death? Honestly, I think it had to be both of them. I wouldn't be surprised if they emboldened each other even if they weren't feeling competitive about it. But I am sympathetic to the OP. I would be completely unamused and grossed out by this entire situation. That's the impression I got. OP knew it was their exec, but the client assumed it was theirs. OP's exec has a wind problem, but the client's team isn't upset by it because they think it's their boss doing it, and fart jokes are a thing for them, so his denial just makes him seem more culpable. Which is all a hilarious coincidence. Story 12. My friend's boyfriend is weirdly invested in my life. My 19F friend's 18F boyfriend is weirdly invested in my life. I, 19F, would like to start off by saying that I am in my own relationship. And although the title sounds weird, I just can't tell if I'm going crazy or not since everyone in my life has acted as if this situation is completely normal. A couple months ago, before I was in a relationship, I was on a dating app and would mainly use it unseriously with my friends. Mainly because I would never find anything substantial in them. I ended up matching with this guy, 19M, let's call him Dave, who only used Instagram to talk to people, and therefore I ended up giving him my IG. I specifically remember talking to my friend, 18F, let's call her Leah, about Dave. My IG is full of pictures of me and my friends. I ended up ghosting Dave due to some personal issues I was going through, and some mannerisms I caught onto that I didn't like. He was low-key aggressive, and I continued to post on my IG. Months later, my friend Leah comes up to me and tells me about this guy she matched with on a dating app. Surprise! Surprise, it's Dave. Leah starts saying that she understands why it wouldn't work out with me and Dave because we have nothing in common, and that she's really excited for her date with Dave. I was also excited for her at first. She went on her first date with him. Things were going very well. On the second date, Dave tells Leah that he wants to meet her friends. He was so pushy about meeting her friends that he said he would plan the whole thing. I told Leah that I definitely did not have to meet Dave until they're more settled into the relationship, and that I wouldn't take offense to not being invited. Leah told me that she wanted me to go, and that all she felt she needed to do was tell Dave that I would be at this meeting the friends date. On Leah's third date with Dave, she asks him who his celebrity crush is, and Dave responds with a popular actress of my ethnicity, and then continues to express how women of my ethnicity are his type. Leah has a very different ethnicity to me, and Dave was well aware of this. She finally musters up the courage to tell him that she is friends with me, and when she does, he tells her, "Oh, I know. Do you know why she ghosted me?" He then proceeded to tell her that he would bring a friend and turn this next date into a double date for us. I go to the double date. Surprise, surprise, his friend doesn't show up because he's too afraid of women? Then we go through the date with Dave and Leah heavily making out everywhere we went to the point where I just continued to get secondhand embarrassment. I then realized that my ex-boyfriend worked at one of the stores nearby. And since I was on good terms with him, I decided to stop by and say hi to him. Again, this is before me and my current boyfriend got into a relationship. Leah and Dave show up, and Dave asked my ex if he wanted to join us, and so he did. It was a pretty awkward setup, since Leah and Dave continued to heavily make out at the restaurant we went to. But thankfully, I was able to get through it without dying of boredom. A couple weeks go by, and this is when I start dating my boyfriend. We made it official before Leah and Dave did, and when he finally asked Leah to be his girlfriend, he sort of did it through text. Leah then tells me that they had gone on a date in the same mall we had gone on our double date, and that Dave had gone back into the store my ex worked at to see if he could find him. Leah tried to play it off as a really cute thing, because apparently Dave doesn't have a lot of friends since he just transferred to this college, and she believes he's just trying to make friends his own age. I don't find it as endearing since my ex was very visibly uncomfortable with Dave throughout the dinner and barely talked to him. A couple months later, my boyfriend and I start to have issues. I confided in Leah, and she wasn't really helpful since all she talked about was how Dave would never do that to her. She also brought up the fact that she had a coworker who was looking for a girlfriend and that she showed him my IG, and he seemed interested. Leah then started talking about how her coworker is actually one of Dave's new friends and how they're getting along well. Leah then puts Dave on the phone and he proceeds to tell me that I should break up with my boyfriend. Dave has never met my boyfriend. Dave also said that I should get myself a man of his ethnicity. Leah then admits to me that Dave has been continuously asking her for updates on how my relationship with my boyfriend is going and if we have broken up yet. A couple days later, I get a follow request from Leah's coworker, and I asked her if she had told him to follow me. She says Dave was the one who told him to follow me and said that Leah's coworker would treat me better. Dave just met Leah's coworker. He doesn't even know him that well. A couple hours later, Dave requested to follow me on his alternate account. I don't know what else to do or say. Leah, my boyfriend, nor my friends seem to be at all upset about this behavior, or at least not at the level I'm upset. My friends have said that it is very odd and seem to think he's weirdly involved with my life as my friend's boyfriend. Is this not weird? Am I wrong for being upset? T.dr. My friend's boyfriend Dave seems oddly fixated on my life, and it's making me uncomfortable. I ghosted him after we matched on a dating app, but now that he's dating my friend Leah, he keeps inserting himself into my relationships, commenting on my love life, encouraging Leah's coworker to pursue me, and even following me on social media with an alternate account. While I find his behavior intrusive and unsettling, Leah, my boyfriend, and my other friends don't seem to think it's a big deal, leaving me questioning if I'm overreacting. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. Stay away, block him out of your life, and don't share so much with her friend Leah. Make new friends, this is really important, because it's got to have a support system. I would also ask her ex what he thinks about Dave, and what they talked about. And tell him you'd rather they don't talk about you because you're unsure of Dave. It is definitely weird behavior. Also, it doesn't matter what they all think. If it feels weird to you, then move with that till your feelings are proved otherwise. OP. 1. I have my own friends, and I think I will be making space between Leah and I for this and other reasons as well. Thank you for your advice. 3. 2. Thankfully, my ex wasn't working the day Dave went in to look for him. I asked what they talked about when Leah and I went into the bathroom, and he said they briefly talked about football and that he felt a little uncomfortable with how overly friendly he was with him. Due to my current relationship, I don't think it's a good idea to be talking to my ex, but if the situation somehow escalates, I may reach out to him. Commenter 2. She, editor's note Leah, doesn't think it's an issue that her boyfriend's type is the opposite of what she is. Like, my gosh, I know she's young, but yesh. OOP. She just clinged on to the fact that people tell us we look alike, so therefore she thinks she looks enough like the people of my ethnicity to pass, or for it to be okay. Also, Dave tried to backpedal and said that he didn't think I was of that ethnicity. But somehow she did? And yet we look alike? I don't know, it's all really weird. Because in my opinion it's gaslighting, but IDK. Commenter 3. Dave is going to try to become your BF's best buddy. You need to take this more seriously. The guy is showing classic stalker nice guy behavior. Consider making your socials all private for a year or two. Because yes, it'll take that long. Don't let your friends know if you'll be alone anywhere, if Dave might find out. Tell your parents or other people outside the friend group, and never go anywhere Dave is. If he's there, leave. Don't be nice about it. He's taking advantage of everybody wanting to be nice. Nope. He's dangerous. OOP. All of my socials are private and I removed him from my followers. I have told my family, although they too think that I'm overreacting. I talked to Leah and she told me that she really wanted to go on a trip with all four of us. I brought up the fact that Dave doesn't seem to like my boyfriend as a way to get out of it, and Leah just said, "Oh, Dave will play nice during the trip, so I can definitely see where you're coming from." Update December 18th, 2024, 3 days later. Original post TLDR. My friend's boyfriend Dave seems oddly fixated on my life and it's making me uncomfortable. I ghosted him after we matched on a dating app, but now that he's dating my friend Leah, he keeps inserting himself into my relationships, commenting on my love life, encouraging Leah's coworker to pursue me, and even following me on social media with an alternate account. While I find his behavior intrusive and unsettling, Leah, my boyfriend, and my other friends don't seem to think it's a big deal, leaving me questioning if I'm overreacting. Thank you so much for all the support you gave me on my original post. I just wanted to update you all on the developments since then. My boyfriend and I made up, and I updated him on the situation with Leah, Dave, and Leah's coworker. At first, my boyfriend seemed unfazed, but the more time passed, the more it seemed to bother him. Leah came over the night I uploaded the original post, and the first thing she said was, "So what happened with your boyfriend? Everyone is dying to know, and by everyone I mean Dave and my coworker," with a huge smile on her face. I pointed out the fact that it was odd that they wanted to know so badly. Leah simply brushed it off and said that her coworker actually wanted to apologize to me. Leah said that supposedly Dave had made it sound like my relationship was done for, which is why her coworker requested me. As for Dave, he just continues to ask Leah if I've broken up with him yet. Leah continued to express her disappointment with some comments Dave has started to make about her size. She specifically talked about how she had wanted to get some dessert, but he had refused to get anything, and then asked Leah, "Do you get desserts with your friends every time you go out with them?" And then Leah alluded to him fat-shaming her friends, specifically me and one of her other friends. A day or so later, Leah calls me and tells me that Dave has once again asked her if I've broken up with my boyfriend yet. We continue talking, and she says that unfortunately she doesn't think that we can go on that trip she's been wanting to go on with all four of us. Although I had already decided I wouldn't go anywhere if Dave were present, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked what changed her mind. She said, "If Dave was in the same room as your boyfriend, I think he would physically fight him." She was being dead serious. My boyfriend and I got into a pretty run-in-the-mill argument. He didn't cheat or lie or steal or hit. It was a simple disagreement. Therefore, I don't think getting physical with my boyfriend is at all warranted, especially considering the fact that this rage is coming from my friend's boyfriend who I originally turned down and barely know. The day after this phone call, my boyfriend brought Dave up and asked if he had done anything else. I informed him, and he seemed genuinely concerned for Leah. He said that I should genuinely consider intervening as things have seemingly gotten worse. I made efforts to intervene when this relationship between Dave and Leah was fresh. However, Leah simply accused me of jealousy. If I had been single at the time, I would have bit my tongue and taken the harsh accusation. However, by the time she made the accusation, I was in a relationship with my current boyfriend. Therefore, the accusation truly upset me, specifically because it was an insult to my boyfriend and our relationship. After reading so many of your comments, which I greatly appreciate, I think I have decided to make some space between me and Leah. Am I wrong for this? Should I try harder to intervene? TLDR. Thank you for all the support on my original post. My boyfriend and I made up, but the situation with Leah and her boyfriend Dave has gotten worse. Leah told me that she can't see us going on that trip anymore because she thinks Dave will try to fight my boyfriend if they end up in the same room, which feels completely unwarranted. I've tried to intervene in their relationship before, but Leah dismissed it as jealousy, so now I'm considering creating some distance. Am I wrong for stepping back instead of trying harder to help her? Relevant comment. Commenter 1. Sorry, OP, but it's time to ghost Leah as well. Dave is stalking you and she's enabling it. IDK, why she doesn't see what's going here. Lack of self-respect, insecure. But she's feeding him info about you, so she's just as bad at this point. Keep them both at a very far distance. Has no one else pointed out to Leah that Dave is only with her because of you? OP. No. That's why I feel like I'm the one that's crazy. Leah has 2 other friends. I am close with one of them, but not really the other, that she constantly talks to. According to her, she told them both the whole story and they both didn't see anything wrong with Dave or his actions. I genuinely thought that she was lying to me about telling them the whole truth, but after talking to one of them, the one that I'm not as close to, I realized that she did in fact know the whole story, and she still believes Dave is a perfectly fine guy. There are other issues Dave has that I haven't necessarily mentioned because they're not relevant to this specific story, but even if you cut me off and all of the weird interactions Dave has had with me, he's still not a good guy to get into a relationship in my opinion. Non-violent crime level type stuff. So I just don't understand why everyone else is so chill with it, which is why I felt like I was the problem. Story 13. My boyfriend bought concert tickets for him and his girlfriend. Hi, my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost 3 years. One of his favorite bands is coming in town next year, and with Christmas coming up, I decided to buy him and I tickets for the concert. I had a feeling he might have bought tickets already, so asked him if he has bought something for himself recently, and he said no. Today at date night we were outside a restaurant talking, and I asked him again, and he again denied it. He opened his phone, and I saw one of his friends had texted him. Keep in mind I don't like this friend. I asked him if I could see his phone, and he said yes. I went through their conversation and saw that he bought concert tickets for him and his girl best friend. This ruined date night, and now I'm crying feeling dumb. I already bought the tickets to surprise him on Christmas, but that's already ruined. What should I do? Top comments. Wait. What 1,327? Dump your boyfriend. He's already dating someone else. Dear_parsnip_6802. If you actually stay with him after this, tell him you bought him tickets for Christmas and give them to him. Up to him what he wants to do with them. Not your problem. He wasn't honest with you. Don't buy him anything else. If you decide you deserve better than someone who lies and goes on a date with his girlfriend and not you, sell them and buy yourself something nice. I'd be seriously reconsidering the relationship, though. It's odd he hadn't considered taking you to the concert and is taking her and doesn't bother to tell you about it. Big red flag I wouldn't ignore. Update December 16th, 2024. Before I tell y'all what happened, let me give you a backstory as to why I don't really like my boyfriend's girl best friend. My boyfriend and her have been friends since they were in middle school/high school. They became friends because she was dating my boyfriend's best friend at the time. Unfortunately, my boyfriend's best friend/her BF passed away, which led to them getting close. When my BF and I started talking, I actually met her and we all hung out together, and she was really nice and cool to be around. I even told my BF, "Hey, I really like your best friend." This all changed when my BF and I started dating officially. She would start blowing up his phone, but I mean blowing up his phone. She would send him 10 text messages in a row, would start calling him and leaving voicemails if he didn't pick up. At first I would think, okay, maybe it's an emergency or something, but no. All she wanted to do was to hang out with him alone, to go to bars with him, to get massages with her, for him to go over her apartment. I obviously started to get suspicious because not once did she consider to invite me knowing that my BF was taken. Obviously, over time, I started to get suspicion and jealous. And not because I'm insecure, even though she is a pretty girl, but because I felt disrespected. Eventually, I confronted my BF and told him if they ever had something going on or if he ever had any feelings towards her before, and he denied it, telling me he would never do that to his friend that passed away and that he only saw her as a sister. I told him he needs to talk to his friend and tell her that he is not single anymore and he isn't going to be free for her whenever she wants to. She needs to learn some boundaries. Obviously, that did not sit right with her, and she still continued to do the same thing. My boyfriend has always been there for her whenever she needed something, but now that he is taken and can't be there, she gets upset. I won't make my boyfriend choose between his friend and me because I would hate to be put in that situation too. I trust him not to fuck up things, but if he ever does, then that's on him and his loss. He has distanced himself a bit from her for my sake, but he says that's still his friend at the end of the day. Now, update about the concert. Yes, I did talk to my boyfriend about it. Some of y'all are saying why I didn't tell him that I was buying the tickets. Well, it was supposed to be a surprise. The whole point is not to tell him. No, I am not a die-hard fan of this band, but I do listen to their music here and there. Apparently, his friend texted him about the concert and asking him if he could go with her, which he agreed. He bought the tickets for the both of them, and then she will pay him later for hers. That way the seats would be together. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think it's fucked up that he didn't care to ask me if I wanted to go. He said he didn't know that I liked the band. If not, he would have asked me. I did ask him why he kept saying no when I asked him if he had bought himself something recently, and he said, "It's because the concert is months from now," and he thought I was talking about something related to his fish tanks or his truck. He said he didn't expect me to buy concert tickets, and if he knew, he would have never bought them. Also, the only reason I went through their messages is because I saw that she texted him, "Let me know when you get the tickets." That's when it hit me, and that's why I asked to go through his phone so I could double confirm. After having a long talk, he did offer to go with me instead. I told him to talk to his friend and let her know ahead of time, that way she can find someone to go with her. I guess we will have to see what her reaction would be once she finds out he won't be going with her anymore. I feel like it was a big miscommunication on his part for not telling me. What do y'all think? Unanswered questions. We are both 24. The concert tickets are for Pierce the Veil. No, I did not make him choose between who he should go, he offered. I don't go through my BF's phone. I asked if I could see it because they mentioned concert tickets. I do believe a man and a woman can be friends. I have guy friends too, but I never once gave him a reason to not trust me. I have always included him in all my activities. Top comments. Pale Cress. I'm not going to be the person who said he's lying. I honestly think he's clueless. I would honestly wait to see if he tells her, then her response and how he responded to that. Like if she throws a fit about him going with you, so he says, "Fine, I'll tell my girlfriend I can't go with her," or something, just leave, he isn't worth it. But if he actually stands by you and says, "No, I'm going with my girlfriend, you can find someone else to go with," we know he's being truthful. Daydreamer 0506. Your boyfriend's friend is behaving that way because she wants him to be her boyfriend. Is your boyfriend aware that this girl obviously wants to date, sleep with him, because she 100% does? The way she was blowing up his phone was because she was friend-zoned and was hoping he would see her as more than a friend eventually. But when you and he started dating, she spiraled and started trying to get him to pay more attention to her. She is trying to poach your boyfriend. You need to talk to him about this because she will eventually make a move on him and try to get him to cheat with her. Story 14. My parents installed a hidden camera in my house without me knowing. Original post. August 7th, 2024. Recently, my parents visited my condo. For the past few months since I've bought it, they've visited me regularly just to talk. And so I thought it was just another visit. And it was until I saw something plugged in my living room. Me and my fiancé. I'm 25F, he's 22M. Clean our place once a week, so I didn't see it until now, and it was a nanny cam. I unplugged it and I called my parents about it, and they said they didn't know anything about it. I believed them at first, but when my fiancé told me that they were the only people that had been in our place in the past week, I asked them again and then they confessed. Their reasoning was honestly appalling, and to put it simply, they wanted to make sure I wasn't having sex. We got in a really big argument, and I've told them to not visit me for a while, but they told me they'd do it anyways, and that we'd have a talk in person about me not being compliant. I'm a grown-ass fucking woman. There is no valid reason for them to break my trust and put a secret camera in my house. I honestly don't feel comfortable seeing my parents for a long time. They were already pushing their boundaries, IMO, with a lot of the comments they say about my fiancé. They've said on numerous occasions he was a slut, which is fucking gross. The only person that's convinced me to still let them see me these past few months is literally my fiancé, and yet they still disrespect both him and his culture regularly. As far as I'm concerned, if he's not open to seeing them, I have no reason to see them for some time either. Relevant comment. Ducky Glow. Change the locks if they have the keys, or simply don't open the doors, say you're out? That's absurd, and in my country it would be a crime. OOP, I'm already planning to do that even if they don't have keys. I live in the US, and I'm pretty sure it's a crime here too, unless you're talking about the US. Environment_591. and do a more thorough search of the home in case there wasn't only the one camera, since they could have admitted to one hoping you would stop looking after they confessed. OP, that was the only one. We checked every outlet because the camera they use needs to be plugged in. Memory boy, if they did something as messed up as this to you as an adult, I dread to think what they did to you as a kid. It took me till I was 45 to realize stuff like this is abuse. OOP. No locks on doors, strict curfews, just normal controlling parent things. It honestly became this controlling when I started dating my fiancée. They were weird about him on day one. Cow_launcher. Yet they still disrespect both him and his culture regularly. I won't make any assumptions about which cultures are involved here, but I suspect that the above is a very large clue as to what's actually going through their heads and what the underlying problem really is. OOP, I'm white and Christian, and my fiancé is Asian and practices Taoism. Update, December 15th, 2024, 4 months later. Hi, so it's been a while since I made my first post. I didn't want to make an update on this, however. A lot of really fucked up shit has happened recently. That's been stressing me out as of late. To start from the beginning, my parents put a camera in me, 25F, and my fiancé's, 22M condo without us knowing. They visited our condo frequently up until that point, so we didn't expect anything until we actually saw it a week later. When we confronted them about it, their reasoning was to basically make sure we weren't having sex. And after it all happened, I didn't feel comfortable at all seeing or talking to them again, or to maybe go no contact, especially considering all of the weird shit they'd said about my fiancé prior to this. However, my fiancé convinced me to do otherwise, so we talked to my parents about it all. They apologized, which the both of us thought sounded RLY fake, so we decided to set some boundaries with them. The most notable ones was that they weren't allowed in our condo for the next year. We changed the passcode for our smart lock, etc., and that they could only meet us in public spaces. We also asked my parents to admit they put a camera in our house if we ever wanted to take legal action against them. At the time, we didn't plan to ever do that, and for the past few months since the incident, we haven't seen my parents all that much. Then around Thanksgiving, my fiancé saw my parents. I was at work at the time, but my fiancé was taking his cousin, 15M, to a fundraising event for his youth church group. My fiancé isn't really all that religious, but he does identify as a Taoist. On the other hand, his cousin is Christian, like my family. I'm pretty sure he's Catholic while my parents are Protestant, so there is a disconnect there. But regardless, they're both still Christian. My fiancé is close to his cousin, and even though I don't really talk to him besides when I'll watch his volleyball games, he's a nice kid. So when my fiancé called me to tell me that he was going to spend the day with him, I thought that was fine. But then I got a call from my fiancé telling me that he saw my parents at the event, when he said that I just told him to ignore them. TBH, I don't think I reacted with enough urgency. I should have told him to literally stay the fuck away from them, like don't talk with them at all, because, for some reason, he decided to bring his cousin to go talk to them. I love my fiancé, so please don't take this the wrong way, but when he told me he willingly brought himself over to see them, I wanted to call him stupid so bad. I don't want to get mad at him, but when he tried to explain his reasoning to me, it was all just IDK. So fucking stupid. He said when he said hi to my parents, they asked him what he was doing here, and then he introduced his cousin. He said that they were actually really respectful to his cousin. It's a kid, so they should be, but I digress. And they talked for a while. His cousin told my fiancé that he needed to go now, so my fiancé tried to say bye. And when he did, he said my dad grabbed his arm. He said they let go right away, but my fiancé asked him what was he doing. They proceeded to get in an argument, and my fiancé started to film them. He got in on video. Literally, as soon as he started filming, they began pushing away my fiancé and his cousin. Literally a fucking kid. They were pushing and hurting a kid for no fucking reason. After that, my fiancé brought his cousin with him back home, so his cousin's event was ruined for him. For the past few weeks now, me and my fiancé have been considering on getting a restraining order against my parents, at the very least my dad. Amazingly, my fiancé is still somewhat hesitant on going all the way through with it, but once he considers his cousin and the fact that he was affected by my parents, too. He wants to get it. It's actually so fucking crazy the shit my parents have done to try and control my and my fiancé's life. Them putting the camera in our house was just the thing that really opened my eyes to everything. After this, I don't ever want to talk to them. My parents have been ignoring all of our calls, but I really wonder what reason they had to basically involve my fiancé cousin, too. Just unbelievable all around, really. Relevant comment. Ceramic Savage, your fiancé needs to take your lead when it comes to your parents. He needs to be on your side. You can't half-ass NC. OP. He has been taking my lead on this, especially after his confrontation my parents. Before I'd say he was still trying to maintain a resemblance of a relationship between us and my parents. However, now he's just worried about me now, which I really appreciate. Kip_Stum. I think sometimes people who don't have abusive, controlling parents don't really understand the seriousness of it. Hopefully your fiancé will listen to you about this now. OOP. I think the thing with him is that he has had abusive parents. The reason he's always tried so hard to keep the relationship between me and my parents alive is because his parents were abusive to him, and yet he still has a relationship with them. Especially after what just happened. That mindset, I think, is gone from him, but I just never really made any sense to me. Environmental_art 591 OP. 1. You have been allowing your fiancé to dictate your relationship with your parents. You wanted to cut them off, but he said no. 2. He sought them out, meaning he could have avoided the drama by not going near them, as you had agreed prior, so once again he ignored your wishes. 3. He is only agreeing to cut them out. Look at legal options because his cousin was affected by his choices. 4. Now you have your friends telling you to take your time, which means that there is more time for your fiancé to ignore you yet again and go against your wishes regarding contact with your family. You need to stand up for yourself and make decisions for yourself, and evaluate the rest of the people you have around you because news flash, it's not only your parents who disregard your boundaries. OOP. I completely understand what you're saying, and I've talked about him listening to me on all of this. But throughout this whole situation, I've been the one making all of the decisions. I've thought about my fiancé and his opinion, OFC, but I was the one who decided to not cut contact when they initially put a camera in our house, and I'm the one really pushing for a restraining order now. He's not arguing with me to not push back on my parents. It's not who he really is. And yes, I know he could have avoided this whole entire situation if he just avoided my parents. I've expressed my frustration with him because, believe me, it's fucking bugging me still that he did that. But like I said, it's who he is as a person. He's a people pleaser. He always tries to make everybody happy. I love him for that, but it probably RLY clear now that it's hurting us. The fact that it hurt his cousin as well, who he's told me is like his brother to him, just made it worse for him. Again, I agree that I should stand up for myself and make the decisions that benefit me, and I've been doing that. My fiancé hasn't been trying to override my decisions with his. He's just trying to make everybody happy. It's how he's always been, and especially with him still in university for his degree, it's been RLY stressful for him as well. Story 15. My coworker made a creepy pass at me. I started a new job this summer around the same time as another coworker, Mac. Our office is one where we're often up and moving between different areas to complete tasks, so there's a fair amount of brief socialization that goes on as paths intersect. Mac and I have started to gravitate to each other often in that context. I had assumed it was because we're some of the only employees in the same particular stage of life, married with kids the same age, similar lifestyles. We even discovered we live in the same neighborhood, just a few streets apart. But Mac said something to me this morning that has me scrutinizing all of our past interactions and unsure how to move forward. He said, "You have this whole sexy librarian thing going on today, and I think it's a problem for me." His statement was made with a bit of a smirk and a raised eyebrow, and it came across like he was making a pass at me. Now I'm looking back at all of our past interactions and wondering if I've been giving the wrong signals. I make no secret of the fact that I'm happily married, and I love my husband, but I talk to Mac more than any other coworker. I'm also open, friendly, and quick to smile, but I'm like that with everyone. Even our clientele regularly comment on my upbeat and smiley demeanor, and I am definitely not flirting with any of them. Not on purpose, at least. Now, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do from here. In the moment, I laughed it off and kept moving to where I was going without comment. I did do my hair and makeup a little differently today, and wore my oft-neglected glasses, so maybe I won't do that combination of things again. I don't want Mac to think I'm interested in a clandestine office romance, but I don't know how I should act around him going forward. I'm not very good at turning off the happy that apparently reads as flirty. Update 1 December 12th, 2023, 1 month after OG post. I have an update regarding my coworker, Mac, who told me my sexy librarian vibe was a problem for him. Reading your response and all the comments was very illuminating. I had been feeling as if I'd somehow brought it upon myself, but you and the commentariat really opened my eyes to the reality of this being entirely on Mac. I'm a little ashamed to admit I was too chicken to bring it up to Mac directly, but I made a point of avoiding his usual paths and successfully dodged him for 2 weeks straight. Last Friday, he came to my workstation and asked if everything was all right and said, "I feel like you've been avoiding me." Well, I took a deep breath, summoned all the resting bitch face I could muster, and said, "Mac, you implied that your inability to manage your pants feels in the workplace was somehow my fault for looking like a sexy librarian. How exactly would you suggest I handle such gross comments in the future if not with avoidance?" His neck and ears turned bright red, and he said something along the lines of, I'm sorry, I didn't, sorry," then literally turned heel and fast walked away. I think I was in a state of nervous shock afterwards. My ears were ringing and I felt strangely tingly, but also incredibly proud of myself. First thing Monday morning, Mac came to my workstation again and gave me what seemed to be a sincere apology. He said there was no excuse for his comment, it was out of line and he was being an idiot not thinking of the implications, that it would never happen again, and asked if there was any way he could make it up to me. I thanked him for apologizing and said I don't think this is something that you really make up to someone, but to please truly ensure he never says anything like that again. He reiterated it would absolutely never happen again and asked if I thought I could ever forgive him. I told him that while I accept his apology, it'll take time to move forward and that I don't really know what that will look like and to please give me space and time, summing it up with, "It'll be what it'll be. Please don't try to force it." He said, "Of course. Again, I'm so sorry," and left my workstation. I think I need some time to process Mac's apology and how I feel about him moving forward. I'm still struggling to reconcile the friend I thought I knew with the lecher that made that comment, and now with the seemingly penitent dope I saw today. People are complicated, but I at least feel like I can go back to taking whatever route I want to get from point A to point B, and I won't be walking on eggshells worried about potentially running into him. I think we can exchange trivialities and move about without issue now. Thank you so much for your response, and to the commentariat as well, especially user Falling Diphthong for the absolute gem of a phrase, "pants feels," which I will love forever, and users Hired Admin, Sarah K., and Awkwardness for their suggestion that I practice responses for when I inevitably had to confront Mac. I don't think I could have managed the response I did without having taken that advice. You guys are amazing! Update 2 December 18th, 2024, 1 year later. I am a religious reader of AAM and love update season. I thought you all might enjoy another update on my situation with Mac. I can't believe it's been over a year. Mac never said anything sexualizing or out of line to me again. We never got back to the kind of easy work friendship we had previously, but things were cordial, and while not necessarily warm, they weren't chilly either. Unfortunately, something eventually came out that likely cements his comments as less innocent than he portrayed them in his apology. He was having an affair, and his wife is divorcing him. He's moved out of the neighborhood and no longer works here, which I'm grateful for. This new development definitely made it harder to assume he didn't know exactly what he was doing with his comments. Thanks again for opening my eyes last year and to all the commenters that helped me find my gumption. I still can't believe I pulled that line with a straight face, and it still feels amazing that I did. And thanks for all the wisdom and entertainment over the years. Can't wait to keep reading more. Story 16. Don't come with me? Fine, someone else will. Original post, December 14th, 2024. My partner Roxy, lesbian for context, is an unhealthy level of jealous and an equally unhealthy level of unreliable. We have never had any issue with infidelity to warrant this, unless you include her texting her exes for an ego boost every so often. We've been together nearly a decade, and in the last 2 months alone, she has missed or stood me up on several occasions, at least once a week. And if she's turned up, it's between 1-2 hours late. This includes a wedding and my rainbow baby niece's first birthday. If she's missed it, I've had to deal with explosive arguments about going with mutual friends instead, and how I spend time with everyone else. I'm always leaving early and always go with friends she wouldn't feel threatened by. Mutual friends are actually her friends I've made friends with, as she's not keen on mine. I have denied, cried, shouted, bargained, begged, and finally reached acceptance that she will never be a reliable partner, and that she has no interest in attending things that don't directly benefit or interest her. This weekend is no different. I put a small, intimate wedding in her calendar in July, verbally confirmed with her. And 3 days beforehand, Roxy lets me know she's double booked with a flaky local school friend this week. There's not actually even a clash. She's meeting her friend in the evening for games. It's an alcohol-free morning wedding an hour away. The bride is understandably irritated she's catered for one extra person who has effectively just decided she doesn't feel like it. Here's where I get petty. I've asked my old uni housemate Alice, who lives in the area, to fill my already catered for +1 spot. Alice is straight as an arrow, but Alice is also charismatic career woman and a part-time model, and she looks it. Alice attends film premieres for work. Anyway, I'm going to be in for hell when I get home. But that's fine, because I've booked the midnight train back. Roxy mistakenly thought I would cancel or come back early to clean up the house and sort food for her and her friend tonight. Update. Wasn't expecting this to blow up. Thank you for taking the time. There's literally 100 comments, and I'm trying to keep this vague enough so that if she sees it, it's still passably someone else. So for my own safety, I won't respond much, but I am reading, especially on questions on my location, etc. It is not safe for me to answer that. She does use Reddit, just not usually this sub. Top comments. Commenter 1. I'm confused about why you're still with this woman. She clearly has no respect or appreciation for you. Maybe you should have a look at what you're getting out of this relationship that's worth all this. In any case, I'm glad you went with someone else. You should be able to just enjoy yourself, and who cares if it annoys her. Commenter 2. Are you planning on staying together with Roxy? If so, why? It sure doesn't sound like you two actually like each other at this point. Commenter 3. Honestly, after reading the first sentence, I was like, why are you still with this person? After reading your whole post, I am like, why on earth are you still with this person? They don't respect you, your time, your friends and their time, your family and their time. They are controlling who you can hang out with, but have no issue chatting up exes to get an ego boost. Are you sure they're just chatting? You deserve more than a person who treats you like this. Maybe there's a feeling of, but we've been together this long, sunk cost fallacy. As sad as that may be, do you really want to give them more of your time? Your time is worth just as much as hers, and she's wasting your time. Update. December 18th, 2024, 4 days later. Firstly, I had an amazing time. The wedding was wonderful. Alice is an absolute star, and I spent the entire day and evening with people that really adore me and were excited to see me there. I also looked super cute in my dress and generally just totally needed that. I had a bit of a cry to Alice on the way home about the whole situation, though. Unfortunately, not as exciting as some of you might have hoped. She ended up saying her best friend invited me over after, and had already cooked some snacks, and that she wasn't going to come meet me at the station when I got home. He didn't. He hadn't. He wasn't happy to see me at 1 a.m. in the morning. She then just told me to tell him I was too tired because she wanted to leave but didn't want to be the bad guy. I got used as a gopher, basically. Her reaction was no different from usual. She blew up a few days later about how everyone loves me more and I have so many friends and woe is her, and no one would care of she died and I would never understand because I have so many friends. This was directly after she put me in harm's way. Will not go into details, that's another story, an A&E trip entirely, but I'm okay. And mostly because she didn't want to apologize. She did, but took it back. A few things. Honestly, thank you for all the messages. I can't respond to them all, but I hear you and have researched whatever you've suggested. Sunken cost fallacy being one of them. I don't think she's a narcissist. I do think she's an asshole. If anything, BPD would probably be my guess at a diagnosis if there was one. I am well aware this relationship is a dumpster fire. As a few of you guessed, I come from a very shitty home life. Screaming, shouting, physical and emotional violence are things I'm unfortunately very used to, even comfortable with. Being abandoned for big events is standard. I can't think of a single meaningful event through my childhood that my parents attended, and I actively had to hide good news until it was too late for them to sabotage. Pink flags in a sea of red. Look white. At least she bothers with an excuse. This is still a lot better than how I grew up, and although confusing for some of you, actually is progress from my last few significantly more physically violent relationships. Also, as many of you pointed out, it didn't start out like this. Very much a boiling frog scenario. I'm already beating myself up that I'm back in this situation again. I really thought I'd made better decisions. 3. I do not currently have means to leave. I'm working on an exit strategy, but whilst I'm working on an exit strategy, some of you are funny as fuck. 2 ones that made me belly laugh were Toxie is Roxic and my sister in Sappho advice. Lastly, I already really appreciated people relaying similar stories. It made me feel less like I'm going crazy. I also really appreciated people recognizing that, whilst small and petty, this is me putting down boundaries and trying to get back up. Top comment. Commenter 1. I'm glad to see that you are working on an exit strategy. I wish you only the best things in life. Story 17. My patronizing coworker interrupts meetings to explain basic things to me. Original post, October 4th, 2023. My coworker, Craig, mid-40s male, chronically interrupts discussions and meetings, ostensibly to help me, mid-50s female, by explaining obvious things. Typical example. Other coworker is proposing a plan to use to our advantage a quirk in the way our state categorizes, say, UFO sightings. I'm well aware of this quirk because I developed our company's internal UFO tracking documents. In the midst of this perfectly clear discussion, Craig interjects, "Hold up. Let's make sure everybody's following. Jane might be a little lost. Jane, do you know what UFO stands for?" As usual, I assure Craig that I'm thoroughly versed in this subject, and yet he ignores me and proceeds to deliver today's rudimentary lesson on the thing we all already know. Craig and I are both in senior roles with different specialties in which we're competent and qualified. I have all the customary degrees and licenses, and have been in the industry several years longer than Craig, while he's been at this company a few years longer, and has been talking to me as if I'm brand new ever since I was actually new more than 8 years ago. Craig has a reputation for dismissive and contentious behavior toward other female coworkers. So my read is that his interruptions are intended to keep getting the idea into colleagues' heads that I'm lacking basic understanding of our work, while simultaneously demonstrating that he's the expert who can translate complicated things into one-syllable bite-sized pieces for the edification of the tiny-brained. I find this sad and tiring, and my coworkers' reactions suggest they're also super annoyed. What's the best way to address this next time it happens? I've already tried many variations of, "Yes, I do know all about that. Please let other coworker continue." Yet it never staves off the remedial lecture. It would be a difficult and perhaps too trivial thing to take to HR. It would sound like I'm complaining about Craig for trying to be helpful. Or he would spin it that way. Of course, it would be fun to start preemptively interrupting meetings myself to explain wildly basic stuff for Craig's benefit, but is there some more professional response that would stop this help once and for all? Editor's note. For Allison's response, please refer to this link here. Update, December 11th, 2024, 14 months later. I wrote last year about my insufferable coworker Craig, who habitually interrupted meetings to Craig-splain basic concepts to me. I have a 2-part update. Your response to my letter was very helpful in making me see just how blatantly obnoxious this behavior was and that I shouldn't just be enduring it. The reader comments were very supportive and offered a lot of great retorts to Craig's blatherings, which I harvested and kept in a file on my phone so I could deploy them as needed. But I also finally went to upper management about the pattern. I believe somebody did bring Craig to a reckoning, as the frequency of the incidents drastically decreased, which was great, although I was slightly disappointed to never get to use most of the suggested replies. Some months later, I got a repeat call from an annoying recruiter about a position in which I had no interest. The recruiter kept telling me the position was very prestigious, would gain me a lot of respect in my field, class up my resume, etc. It was a not great role, at a company type I avoid, in a location at which I don't want to work, and it suddenly dawned on me who would actually be flattered by this sales pitch. I sicked the recruiter on Craig, just gave him Craig's contact info, absolutely no praise or endorsement of any sort, and soon Craig was off to this dubiously prestigious new job. I feel a little guilty for inflicting him on his new coworkers. Maybe I should anonymously forward them the list of Craig-diffusing meeting interruption retorts. Thanks to you and your readers. Story 18. Am I in the wrong for telling my ex-husband that our kids are justified in feeling like they don't have a father? Original post. November 9th, 2024. I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their dad when I discovered he was cheating on me with a mom from our younger son's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their father in their lives. However, since the divorce, he's only been around when he's picking them up for visits. He often goes out with his stepchildren but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that he keeps his distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he asked if we could give his old one to his cousin, my brother's son. My brother has been a huge support for my kids. He's always available to take them to their school events when I can't, and often takes them out to the park or for trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask him to help with an activity, he has an excuse. He's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically, though, whenever his stepkids need something, he's there. Once he even argued with the stepkid's father at a school event, insisting he had the right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my nephew, he got upset. He complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd missed, since his finances were tight with a new baby. He added that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either his kids or his stepkids, who share just one computer among the 3 of them. I told him my finances were none of his business, and that I owed nothing to his stepchildren. Then his wife jumped into the conversation, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer, and of being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was just to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I added that I allow my kids to see their father so they can grow up with him in their lives, not so she can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told him this whole situation could have been avoided if his wife hadn't inserted herself where she doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. He explained that he'd tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest. At home, he still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, his brother, or my brother, and when none of us are around, he listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect, so he offered to read to him, but our son turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet, and it hit him hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older son to basketball practice, but he replied that he'd be going with his dad. He quickly corrected himself and said uncle. That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, he confronted me about it. I told him that if our kids feel like they don't have a father, he has only himself to blame. He tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing him away from his role. I told him it's up to him to show up for his kids, not something I can do for him. I reminded him he was the one who broke our family, and he's chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I told him not to kid himself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is as a father. If he keeps this up, he can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, his mom called me. While she's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated this same concern from her when she supported her son's affair, knowing her grandchildren were losing their father in the process. She hung up and we haven't spoken since. My brother advised me that I had every right to express how I feel, but he suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me saying that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I told him his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and he knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when he has to choose, he prefers outings with his stepkids over his own children. And that's something only he can change. Some of OOP's comments, OOP really only replied to a few, and most she replied to were downvoted. Custody agreement. The agreement was to split the time 50-50 with the new baby. Now he says he doesn't have space for both kids and only picks them up on weekends. When they're at his place, he doesn't take them anywhere. The weekend goes by and he goes out with his stepchildren and his wife. Even when they used to stay with him half the week, it was the same story. The current custody agreement. The current agreement is that he can have them whenever he wants. To make it clearer, if they want to have breakfast with me on Monday and dinner with him, that's valid. Here's the thing. Now that the agreement is like this, he sees them less than when he was supposed to have them half the time. I don't know if this makes it clearer now, and we're not from the United States. Commenter, downvoted. I'm also a bit suspicious about how OP somehow knows all these details about his relationship with the stepkids. That seems suspect. OP says at the end of the post that she's been accused of being difficult. Fine, her anger is justified. But if she's fought for primary custody, or if the ex has to go through her to get things like extracurricular schedules, then she's contributed to this situation as well. OOP. My older son is friends with his father, step-siblings, and stepmother on Facebook. That's how he has seen and shown me things. I've also found out about other outings because when my mother-in-law called me, she would mention why the kids didn't go to a certain place with their father. She thought I wasn't giving permission and scolded him for lying about me not wanting them to spend time with their step-siblings. Difficult, in the sense that I don't want anything more than two parents who respect each other and take care of their children. No favors, no discussions about things that don't concern the kids. There was no custody battle. Commenter, downvoted. Your 8-year-old son, I have an 8-year-old as well, so don't try and lie here, was searching for audiobooks relating to 8-year-olds who don't have a dad, unprompted on his own? You expect us to believe this? OP. I wasn't there. That's just how my ex told me about it. I didn't mean it literally. More like when you search for kids' stories and see what pops up. That's how I saw it. Why my son searched for it like that, I have no idea. I asked him why he used that title, and he just said he wanted a story. Update post, November 21st, 2024, 12 days later. These past days have been a bit unusual. First, I want to thank all of you. I didn't expect to receive so much advice, and I never thought this app would be so useful. It's not very popular in my country. Now back to the topic. My ex sent me messages saying he wanted to resolve things, stop arguing, and talk to me. I agreed. He came to my house and we didn't beat around the bush, we went straight to the point. He asked me if I really thought he was a bad father. I replied that looking back now, I never would have chosen him to be the father of my children. He said it wasn't easy for him, and I answered that it wasn't easy for me either, because I take on both his role and mine. He told me he couldn't leave his stepchildren without a father because he had already broken their family, and I replied that he had left his own children without a father. He started crying and told me it was my fault, saying that when the infidelity happened, I refused to forgive him or go to couples therapy. I kept telling him things I'll admit they weren't kind, but none of them were lies. He asked me if, given his current state, I didn't feel sorry for him, and I said no. He told me he didn't think I could be so cruel, and I replied that when I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the end of the term, moved houses, and watched him disappoint our kids over and over again, any empathy I might have felt turned into apathy. He left after that. His mother called me and said she knew what I had told her son, that he hadn't stopped crying, and that she didn't understand how I could carry so much hatred to hurt her son like that. She said I should just get over it. I answered, with all due respect, what I said wasn't out of hatred but out of truth. If your son is crying, it's because he's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Maybe instead of worrying about how he feels now, you should have taught him to take responsibility and treat people with respect. She said I didn't know what it was like to feel a mother's love and see a child suffer, and I replied that I did understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living father. 2 children who see their dad being a father to other kids when he doesn't have time to be their father. She said he was sorry, and I told her not to put words in his mouth and to stop calling me about anything related to her son. I hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damned mother, and I don't have time for that. I want my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough not to need anyone, not even me, to be themselves. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party, hosted by my ex-sister-in-law. I still have a good relationship with her. She was the one who told me about the infidelity and that her mother was already encouraging it. My ex showed up alone and irritated. My kids kept their distance from him. They kissed his hand, but then ignored him completely. My ex-mother-in-law told the kids they should show more respect to their father, and my eldest replied that he doesn't show respect for me since he and his partner talk badly about me. I scolded my son, not for what he said but for how he addressed his grandmother. I told him it was wrong to eavesdrop on private conversations and repeat them. Then I asked him to gather his things because we were leaving. My ex-mother-in-law asked me not to leave, saying the kids were having fun and we could resolve this as adults. She asked my ex what he had said, and he claimed not to remember. I told her I didn't care, and she said we should be good parents. I replied that to be good parents, you need to be good people first. My ex was getting agitated. My ex-mother-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. I told her everything I've mentioned here about his free will to see the kids and how the second custody agreement isn't working since he only sees them some weekends. My ex didn't want to discuss it, saying he had too many kids at home. My ex-mother-in-law told him the only kids who should feel comfortable are his, and the comfort of the others should be provided by their biological father. My ex wanted to end the conversation because his mother was scolding him for being a careless father. He also said it was my fault. I asked him to clarify how it was my fault. You can see the kids whenever you want. What more do you want? He started yelling, claiming I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer kids to feed. I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show him what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payments. His mother asked what I meant by overdue payments. I explained that he was 3 months behind. She was furious, slapped him, and demanded to know what he had done with the money for his children. He answered, I couldn't let JR miss out on attending the same school as my son. I didn't want him to feel inferior. My ex-mother-in-law said she couldn't believe it, and they started arguing. I left. Yet for context, my youngest son attends a private school, and my ex pays for his stepson to attend the same school. Yesterday, my ex-mother-in-law came over and said she would pay the overdue fees. She brought the money in cash. I knew my ex would be furious. Here's some context. My ex-mother-in-law doesn't work, doesn't own anything herself, and lives with my ex-sister-in-law. However, she does have significant savings from her inheritance. If she pays the tuition, my ex knows there won't be much left for him when she passes, even though she's still healthy. He's been asking her for years to invest some of that money in his business ideas, but she's always refused. My ex's retaliation was not picking up the kids this weekend. Yesterday, my ex-sister-in-law called me. She doesn't know all the details yet, but apparently my ex's 15-year-old stepson punched him in the mouth. She said she'll let me know exactly what happened once she finds out. And before anyone asks, the new custody agreement will likely take a year to finalize. The court says the overdue payments are the priority, and the rest can wait. We have more urgent cases. Some of OOP's comments, Meal. She knew about the affair. When I say she wasn't rude to me, it's because she never showed displeasure towards me, or was a bad mother-in-law. I was surprised that she was a cover for her son. During the divorce, she didn't take sides, and has always been a good grandmother. Commenter. Is kissing hands a thing in certain cultures? Never heard of that. OOP. It's not about literally kissing hands. In my culture, when you see your parents, grandparents, uncles, and godparents, you ask for their blessing. It's like saying Xian, short for the word Bendishan, blessing. It sounds like Xian, as in Xian Father, or the Blessing Father. School. When I found out, I was furious. My son goes to that school because the cheating scandal rumors were spreading at his old school, and I wanted to keep him away from it. Update Post 2, November 22nd, 2024, next day. A promise is a promise. As I mentioned earlier, my ex's stepson had an altercation with him because my ex refused to let him go out. Now I have more details. My ex's stepson had plans to go bowling with some friends. His biological father had already given him permission and money for the outing. However, when he told his mother, she said he couldn't go because they needed him to stay home and watch his younger siblings. My ex and his wife had planned an outing and needed someone to stay with the kids. This led to an argument. The boy raised his voice to his mother, and my ex stepped in to demand that he respect her. The boy replied that he wasn't his father. Trying to maintain authority, my ex told him that as long as he lived under his roof, he had to follow his rules. The boy ignored him and turned away. My ex followed him and touched his shoulder to get his attention. At that moment, the boy turned around, punched him, and shouted that he wasn't his father and could never compare to him. The mother scolded him for his behavior, but the boy, still angry, shouted back that he hated her. This version was shared by my ex and his wife to my ex-mother-in-law. My sister-in-law later relayed it to me. They went to see my ex-mother-in-law to try to gain her sympathy and convince her to take care of the kids, the 2 stepchildren, and the baby so they could go out. However, my ex-mother-in-law told them she would not take care of the children. When I spoke to my ex, he mentioned he was dealing with family issues and claimed that the boy's biological father was turning him against him. He didn't give me many details and omitted most of what my sister-in-law had shared. He simply informed me that due to the situation he wouldn't be able to pick up our children this weekend. The 15-year-old boy is now staying with his biological father. As for what I mentioned earlier, my ex was 2 months behind on child support, and that same week he was supposed to make another payment. He didn't, leaving him 3 months behind. In the end, his mother was the one who covered the overdue amount. Regarding the child who attends the same school as my son, it's not the 15-year-old involved in the altercation. It's his younger stepbrother, who is 8 years old, the same age as my son. I decided to enroll my son in that school when the affair became public. At the time, I was working as a kindergarten teacher at the same school, and the boy had been one of my students. We all knew each other, and to protect my children from rumors, I transferred them to a private school. This happened 2 months before the school year ended. Thanks to the circumstances and the support of some kind people, we managed to get them admitted. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. The thing I don't understand is that X complains that you have more money, but now you're a kindergarten teacher. Rewarding but not well paying. Certainly not well paying enough to put a kid in private school. OOP. When the infidelity occurred, I was an elementary school teacher and was pursuing a master's degree. Now I am a secondary school teacher and work in a government institution. My salary is now 4 times higher than it was before the divorce. I worked at a public school because I wanted to be close to my children in case something happened. As I mentioned before, my son is still in a private school, but his father pays the tuition so that his stepson can attend there. Commenter. I wonder if he knows that his mother gave you money for his children. He's lucky that you're not an asshole because, legally, he is still behind in child support, especially if she didn't pay it the way the court ordered. I don't believe that courts ever suggest cash payments. OP, he knows that. That's why he didn't pick up the kids last week. OOP comments, even my ex-sister-in-law doubts that things happen this way. At first, her wife was crying when her mother said she wouldn't take care of the kids, but the crying stopped, and then the justification started. I know the guy, and I never saw him in violent behavior. Update Post 3, November 26, 2024, 4 days later, 17 from OG Post. First of all, I don't know much about how subreddits work, but someone told me that my profile was shared on one, and I have some words for those involved. The discussion was about how I could afford private school tuition on a kindergarten teacher's salary. To clarify, I am no longer a kindergarten teacher. I am a high school teacher, and salaries in education vary significantly depending on the country. In my country, salaries in education are quite competitive compared to other jobs. To clear up any further assumptions, micro businesses, $280, small businesses, $315, medium-sized businesses, $350, large businesses, $370. My field, education, early education, kindergarten, $800, $1,000, primary education, $900, $1,100, secondary education, $1,100, $1,300, secondary education. With 5 years of experience, $1,300, $1,400, associate professor, master's degree, $1,050, $1,400, full professor, doctorate, $1,400, $1,750. The cost of living here is affordable, and I mentioned that in several comments. I am not from the United States, where life is more expensive. In my country, this salary is more than enough to live comfortably. I am not rich, but my kids enjoy an excellent quality of life. Private school tuition varies. There are schools as low as $120 per month or less, and of course there are elite schools that are much more expensive. We use local currency, not dollars. I also have other sources of income that are irrelevant here. Now, to stop the speculation, people assumed I was from multiple countries, calculated my monthly tuition costs, and even tallied up all my expenses. The only thing you missed was calculating the cost of my divorce. Let me save you some trouble. I didn't pay a single cent, and my ex left with nothing but the clothes on his back. Careful not to choke on that. As for my kids not being well cared for, my kids are perfectly fine, and as long as I'm breathing, no one will take that away from them. I saw a lot of concern for my children, but here's a question for you. What about your kids? Are they okay? Did you pay what you owe for their care? When was the last time you saw them? There's no need to worry about my kids. If any of those users want more details, feel free to contact me, and I'll happily send over some bills for you to pay since you're so interested in my finances and expenses. And regarding my divorce, it was far from amicable. Not because of custody, that was never an issue, but because my ex lied at every turn to delay and obstruct the process. I didn't accept it then, I don't accept it now, and I never will not in a million years. For those still questioning my divorce, here are my words to you. Once there's infidelity, there's no family left. This clarification isn't for those who offered helpful comments or advice on my post. End of the informational break. Now the actual update. The day after my post here, my ex was arrested for domestic violence and child abuse. The father of the boy involved filed a complaint. My ex's wife defended him, claiming that her son was a brat and that this wasn't the first time her son had been violent with him or his younger siblings. This left me surprised because, as far as I know, my ex had never mentioned that the teenager had been beaten. My ex-sister-in-law said that her brother, meaning my ex, never brought it up. I asked my kids if their stepbrother had ever touched them or been violent with them. Both said no. My children are comfortable telling me anything, and their answer was no. My ex and his wife have since changed their story about the incident. Now, their version is that the boy misbehaved, my ex tried to talk to him, and the boy hit him first, so the mother hit her son to pull him off my ex. Child protection authorities here are usually very strict when a case interests them, or when the harm suffered by the child is severe. I haven't seen the teenager myself. The teenager has been placed in a shelter for abused youth. Edit. When physical abuse of minors is reported, they are transferred to a safe space until a gazelle chamber interview and a forensic medical evaluation are conducted. Once a safe environment is confirmed, they are returned to the parent. Story 19. I've been making food for a girl I like. Turns out she's been throwing it all out. Original post, Wayback Machine, November 23, 2024. I have nowhere else to talk about this, so I'm coming to Reddit. I, 21M, am in college, and there's this girl that I'm sort of head over heels for. We have a couple classes together, and I know some of her friends, so we see each other and hang out a lot. I thought there was something between us, but I guess I was wrong. I knew she'd been going through a tough time with some family issues lately, and I thought she might appreciate not having to worry about cooking while she's worried about all of that. So I've been making her some meals and giving them to her when I see her, usually after class. Food isn't necessarily my love language. I just like to make sure the people I care about are happy and fed. Well, I was catching up with some of our mutual friends, a couple of whom live with her, and they told me that she either usually throws out the food or gives it to her roommates. I don't think she's eaten anything I've made for her. She always says, "Oh, you didn't have to do that." All sheepishly when I give her the meals I made. I just figured she was being bashful. I wish she would have just told me to stop so I could have saved some time and energy. I don't know, I'm just upset. I'm not sure where I stand with her now. Edit. Some context. I said in a comment that people said I should add to the original post. Her friends encouraged it. I'm very close friends with many people in her close circle, and they knew what I was doing. They said it was sweet. I understand now that it was kinda weird and I probably should have stopped. But I would also say that we're friends rather than acquaintances. We've hung out one-on-one in the past, which she initiated. I think she just might see me as a friend, which is totally fine, and the message about not just giving people food is 100% heard on my end. I just hated to think that she was stressed and going hungry. She's confided to me in the past that she struggles to make time to eat when under stress. Relevant? Comment? Commenter 1. They're being creepy, and she doesn't know what's in it. Could be nice quality ingredients, could be blood and semen. Stalkers do weird shit, and op sounds a little stalkerish. OOP. I mean, yeah. As a man, sometimes I am not super acutely aware of what a woman might make of a certain situation, and I understand that this thought process is necessary given what women go through. While I had no bad intentions, she couldn't know that for sure. I'll back off. I will say, though, that her roommates that I'm friends with did encourage it originally, but I realize now it's because they got to eat the food I made. Commenter 2. Just curious. How did you know that she was having family issues? And what do you tell her when you give her the food? It sounds like you interact with her friend group, but on an acquaintance-based level. How close are you with her and her friends? OOP, we're friends. I originally knew her through our mutual friends, but we hang out one-on-one sometimes. She told me about what she has going on in her life. Commenter 3. That's not how it's done, buddy. You ain't getting love in exchange for food. Women aren't dogs. OOP. I mean, I don't want anything in exchange. This wasn't really an attempt to woo her. I just wanted to make sure she had enough to eat while she was dealing with all this. She's told me and our mutual friends in the past that she struggles to eat when she's stressed. Just really care about her and was just trying to help reduce some of her mental load while she's going through a tough time. Regardless of whether or not she likes me, we are friends, and I do care about her. Commenter 4. Depends where you're from. There are parts of the world, and the U.S., where the norm culture is to give someone a meal if they're struggling with a life event like a death in the family. OOP. My family is Ukrainian. I was born there. And food is for sure equated to caring over there. I can't count the amount of times I might have told my baba that I was stressed/tired/upset, and I had a plate of food put in front of me as a sort of, "I'm sorry you're dealing with that." I'm sort of similar where I trend on the skinny side, especially when I'm not doing super well, so I always appreciated being fed. Update, November 24th, 2024, next day. So, I heard you guys loud and clear that I might have overstepped on this one. Since me and this girl are friends, and I'm super close with a lot of her friends, I figured last night I would text her and apologize. Just because of class and me being at her apartment to see her roommates I'm friends with and whatnot, I know I'll still have to be around her in the future. I made it clear that she didn't even ever have to speak to me again, and that I just wanted to let her know I was so sorry. The conversation went way better than I thought, and it's safe to say we're still on good terms. I figured I'd share this to give everyone closure. Text screenshot 1. Text screenshot 2. Transcript of the text messages. OP. Hey, I just wanted to reach out and let you know I found out you've been getting rid of the food I've been giving you. If what I've been doing made you uncomfortable, I just want to apologize, because that was never my intention. I've realized that it was a little much, and I should have asked if that was something you were okay with. You don't have to keep hanging out with me or even respond to this message. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry that I likely crossed a boundary with you. Friend. Hey, you didn't make me uncomfortable at all. I just have kind of a funky relationship with food, and I struggle eating things that I didn't make myself. Honestly, I totally owe you an apology for not explaining, because I understand you went through the effort to do that for me, and me not eating the food, but still accepting it might feel like a slap in the face. In my defense, the food mostly went to my roommates. The only times I've thrown it out is when no one got to it before it got too old. I think it was really sweet that you were thinking of me like that. I was worried that telling you to stop would put you off hanging out with me. Oopie. That is so good to hear. So maybe we skip the food and just hang out next time? I'll be back at school deck. First? Friend. Yes, let's do it. Edit. I love how most of Reddit told me to apologize to her and never speak to her again on my last post, and now I'm getting clowned for doing exactly what you guys told me. Pick a struggle LOL. Relevant comment. Commenter 1. I forgot how much guys just straight up don't listen to women. We're not puzzles, and many of us speak literally. You didn't have to do that. Literally meant, you didn't have to do that. You were so dialed in on how you feel that you didn't take hers into account. OOP, she literally smiled and said, "Aw, you didn't have to that." People say that when they're bashful. If a man said that, we'd all assume he was being polite and bashful. If she wanted me to stop, she should have made it clear. It doesn't matter now because I already posted an update. Your comment just rubs me the wrong way. Story 20. I, female, am battling cancer. I'm gay, but I have realized I love my best friend of 25 years, a man. I need to vent all my thoughts, and I'm looking for advice on whether to tell him or not. This is going to be a long post because I'm emotionally flooded and a rambler. I need to get it off my chest. My dearest friend in the world is a man named James. Not real name. All names and nicknames are altered in this story. I'd try to describe how great he is, but it's honestly easier just to tell you the story. James and I grew up in the same town, a conservative Christian town in nowhere, USA. The first time I met him was on the playground at school. He saw me sitting alone under a tree and came over to ask me if I wanted to play with him and his friends. I said no, but he noticed I was reading a book about space, the solar system, to be more precise. So he sat down next to me and asked me which planet I thought would be the coolest to visit. We ended up talking for the rest of recess about what we thought the other planets might be like. And when we went back to class, he introduced me to his friends as my new friend, ____. We were inseparable from that point on. It was one of those things where the entire town, our parents included, had us married off by age 8 or something. We didn't understand at the time, of course, but I would go on family trips with his family, stay over at his place and vice versa through most of elementary school. Get in trouble for talking during class every day. Though not really, because the teachers all loved him. This dude can charm his way out of anything, it is unreal. We were best friends. When we finally reached the awkward teenage years and dating became a thing, he asked me to the first school dance and I said yes. We sort of started dating by default. I don't think we ever talked about it explicitly, but I just started calling him my boyfriend to other people, and we went with that. Very little changed about our relationship. We still basically just did all the same stuff we used to do before, except our parents got stricter about the sleepovers and there was more hand-holding and cuddling. Kissing and stuff was always difficult for me, and I didn't know why, but he never pushed me on it at all, not even once. The 2 times we tried, he was able to tell very quickly that I was uncomfortable, and he just shut the interaction down by messing up my hair playfully, saying, "Enough of that, how about we just watch a movie?" I just assumed one day I would get it. Well, I didn't. Sometime around 15 years old, I started to realize the problem. I wasn't sexually attracted to men. This was a very trying time for me. Given the kind of environment I grew up in, this was not acceptable. My parents were extremely religious and extremely anti-LGBT. After about 8 months of identity crisis over this, I decided to muster up the courage to tell James before anyone else. I didn't know what to expect. I was terrified. I went over to his house trembling. He had done what he always did, made my favorite snacks and got the controllers and my favorite game, Diddy Kong Racing, ready to go. He opened the door and gave me a hug, and I came in. I was so scared. We sat down, and he looked at me for a second before putting his hand on mine and asking me what was wrong. So I tried to tell him. And I got halfway through the sentence, struggling to actually say, "I'm gay," before he just interrupted me and said, "You're gay? Yes, I know. Is there anything else?" Followed by that goofy smile I love so much. I just froze in place. I asked him if he was mad, and he just laughed and told me he loved me the way I was, and this was the way I was. I just started crying and jumped into his arms. It felt like 10 minutes at least I cried before he finally interrupted me in characteristic fashion, remarking, "However, I will be mad if you let the pizza rolls I made get cold, so how about we stop crying and start eating?" We stayed best friends after that. We never actually had a breakup talk, but we did start to date other people. We hung out almost every day until we graduated, and he went away to a big-name college. The night before he left, he came and picked me up, and we drove around town and hit all our favorite spots. He drove me back home at 3 a.m. or something in the rain, and I took his hand during the drive home and fell asleep on his shoulder. I remember wondering then for a moment if I should just marry him anyway. But he was going away to college, and I'm not attracted to men, so it probably couldn't work no matter how I felt about him otherwise. He promised to stay in touch, but I didn't know if that would happen. Well, it did. Obviously, it wasn't like before, but he made sure to call me every week just to check up on me and see how things were going. I went to college close to home. We'd talk about how hard college was, whoever we were dating at the time, and whatever drama was going on. During his junior year, my parents found out that I was gay. They did not react well, and I was basically kicked out of my home to save me. My dad going on about me needing Jesus's 40 days in the desert like a lunatic. My parents are good people, so this didn't last, and they have more than made it up to me since and worked hard to unlearn their bad programming, but that was an awful time. I did what I always do and called James. He talked to me for about an hour and then got his mom to drive up to get me so I could stay in his old room. Then he flew home the next day, pretty much just to cheer me up and make sure I was all right. Vintage driving around in circles singing like idiots, and 2 a.m. junk food runs did the trick. I later found out from my mom that he had also gone and confronted my parents, stood up for me, and told them they should be ashamed of themselves, and if they were willing to lose their daughter over this, they were unfit parents and not the second family I thought you were. My parents worship him, so this was effective, and my mom still tells this story to this day. Once again, I remember wondering at the time, will I ever know anyone else in my life who would do this for me? But he was heading off back to college, and he was still a man. So I didn't do anything. Years went by. He got married. I got a long-term girlfriend. We stayed close the entire time. We saw each other a lot less, but it was still great every time he visited, and we had frequent text calls. I looked forward to his visits all year. And then tragedy struck. His wife divorced him. I never liked her, but he did. I think she used him for a green card, and he was too sweet to notice, but that's neither here nor there. He came back home, so I saw him a lot more. Obviously, he was crushed, but we got through it together. And then I got the diagnosis. At age 27, cancer. There's nothing I can say that describes the feeling, so I'm not even going to try. Decent chance of survival, but I had to start treatment right away. This experience has changed me and my outlook on life more than anything else that's ever happened to me combined. At first, everyone was there for me. I was getting visitors daily, friends, family, everyone. But as the weeks turned into months, it all stopped. Most people, even my friends, started coming once a week, then once a month, then many not at all. When things were looking bad around the 7, 8 month, my girlfriend broke up with me claiming she loved me, but she couldn't handle watching this. Almost 2 years in now, and there's only 5 people who are still here. My mom, my dad, my sister, my BFF Amanda, and James. I almost can't talk about it without crying, but James is here every fucking day, every day, for hours. He may have missed 20 days in almost 2 years due to work-related travel, and even then he calls me. He comes in and asks how his Amumu, which he's called me since we were kids, because I like cows and those are my initials and underscore, is doing and listens. He brings my favorite snacks, treats when I can have them, board games we like to play, old video games on handheld so we can play. He sings to me and shows me pictures of places he's been. I'd like to go and talks about taking me once I'm better. He sits there and holds my hand in silence so I won't be alone until the doctors tell him it's time to go. Then he does it again the next day. I've never seen him cry or show any sadness. If I even casually say something like, "If I get better," he'll immediately interject. When? When you get better? He just won't give up on me. The only other person who is there like this is Mom. Even my dad/sister/Amanda, who have also shown up in big ways, are not this consistent. I could write a whole post about how this experience has changed my relationship with Mom as well. She's proven to me that no matter what happened in the past and what we may have clashed over, she loves me like no one else. Except maybe James. My mom is the #1 all-time James fangirl. She has been attempting to get me to marry him since I was 7 years old. A long time ago, she stopped that. But about 3 months ago, she made probably her first comment of that kind in around 7 years. I guess there are a few things she said. The first was, pay attention to the people who are still here now. They're the people who always will be. They're the people who love you, and not just what you can do for them. Which sort of set me off on the whole months-long train of thought that led to this post. Amanda and my sister also make a lot of comments about James. Both, like him and Amanda, told me a few visits ago that she thinks I love him. And one reason none of my other relationships have worked out is that the other person can always tell they're #2 everywhere but the bedroom. Then about a month ago, Mom was a little more direct. After James left one evening, she told me, "Baby, in all my years on this earth, I've never seen anyone love anybody like that boy loves you. I know you don't like it when I talk about this, but trust me, if you let him go again, you're going to regret it forever." I don't know what has changed, but this time when she said that, I just knew she was right. Every relationship I've ever been in has had some problem, or thing that has to be worked on. Most of them have several. The only thing missing here is that I don't feel a strong urge to rip his clothes off like I have with some, but honestly not all or even most of the women I've been with. But even there it's different. In general, I find the idea of being with a man disgusting, but I don't find it disgusting with him. I like being touched by him and being close to him. He's so gentle. Lately, I even find myself fixating on his lips and daydreaming about kissing him. I'm not that sexual of a person, and I think overall of the people I've known in my life, I would be happier with him than with anyone else, and it isn't close. Now, the big problem is the cancer. Honestly, I'm not really on the fence about this anymore. If I survive, I want to be with him. I am getting better, and the doctors are hopeful. But I am not sure if I should tell him now or not. I want to tell him so bad. I want him to know how much I love him. Lovers have come and gone for both of us, but every time I close my eyes and think about times I've felt truly loved, understood, and accepted, it's always his smiling face I see, When I think about times I felt warm and safe, it's his arms I feel wrapping around me like a warm blanket, just my size. His voice I hear saying, "Don't worry, Amumu, it'll be all right." Or cracking some silly joke. I want him to know that I want him with me, by my side forever. There's nowhere I'd rather be than wherever he is, doing absolutely fucking anything. Cuddling up on the couch, making jokes about stupid movies, playing our favorite video games, talking about life till 2 a.m., driving around in circles while he sings boy band songs like a goofball. I don't care as long as he's there too. I want him to know that if I survive this, we will be together. That's what I want. That's all I want. He's all I want. But I'm scared to tell him because I don't know what's going to happen. If I don't make it, would it have been kinder to just keep this to myself? If you were him and in this position, would you want me to tell you how I feel? Comment. Your sexuality can be, most women, and James, it can be whatever you need it to be. I saw a nice post from a woman who came to realize after many years of marriage to her male best friend that she was almost certainly a lesbian and wasn't attracted to men, except for her husband, whom she continued to adore. Good luck in your romantic endeavors, OP, and you're going to beat that cancer. Link. OP, thank you so much. It's been hard, but things are starting to look up, like I've got a good chance here. Link. Sorry, it was a while back. I was watching a series of late 2 lesbian posts on TikTok during the pandemic, and I think it might have been one of those. She realized that she was certainly only really attracted to women, but she also realized that she was attracted to her husband, who'd been like your James, her boyfriend, best friend throughout school, and she'd just kept following the normative heterosexual relationship escalator of GF, fiancé, wife, mother. In the end, she adored her husband so much she didn't want to leave, but he was definitely the only man she'd ever be with. It stood out because the other L2L posts weren't always that positive. Lots of tears and heartbreak. There was one whirlwind post of a woman who was married with a 2-yo and a baby when the lockdowns hit in March 2020, and she downloaded TikTok for entertainment. By April, she realized that she was gay. By May, she'd told her husband. In October, she came out to her family, and by February, she was divorcing and had a girlfriend. Happy ending, though, because and hubby were still best friends, co-parenting nicely, and both had new girlfriends. I'm rambling now, so I'll stop. Link. OP. Rambling what I spend most of my time doing, haha. Thanks for the details. I sure hope this ends up being one of the good endings. Link. Update. I, female, am battling cancer. I'm gay, but I have realized I love my best friend of 25 years, a man. I need to vent all my thoughts, and am looking for advice on whether to tell him or not. June 20th, 2023. If you want the original story, it has a similar title. Here is my update. So tonight I told James. I told him everything. Gosh, I just wish I could relive this night over and over again. I've never been so happy. He came into my room this evening like he always does. Greeted me. Hello, how's my Amumu doing today? I told him I was doing well. He told me I looked beautiful, which is not true, but it still felt so sincere. Then he started unpacking the stuff he brought me today. I asked him to stop and just come sit with me because I wanted to talk to him. He nodded and came and sat down next to me. What's up? He asked. It took me a bit to gather myself. I kept getting distracted by his eyes. How he looks at me sometimes, I don't know how to describe it. I told him, I love you. And he just kind of laughed and touched my hand before casually responding, Oh, I know that. I love you too. In retrospect, this wasn't the best way to start, I guess, since we've said that enough with a different understanding that he didn't get what was happening. He started to get up again to unpack the snacks, and I grabbed his arm and asked him to let me finish. He looked confused, but he nodded and sat back down. And then I did it. I told him everything. I told him about all the times in the past I'd thought about just marrying him despite my sexuality. I told him my favorite memories of him, and how they make me feel. I told him he'd always been my best friend, and the person I trusted the most. I told him I made a mistake and I should have chosen him. I then basically devolved into reciting the last paragraph of my first post to him. He's the face I see when I think about feeling loved, the embrace I feel when I think about being safe, It doesn't matter what we do. If we're together, I'm happy, and he's the only thing I want for the rest of my life." He basically froze. He said nothing, just looked at me as I spilled everything. I am not sure he even blinked. When I finished and looked up at him, he was sitting there like a statue with his mouth slightly open. Still enough, it was like he forgot to breathe. James always knows what to say, so this was a little unnerving to me. I started to ask him if everything was all right, but before I could finish, his expression broke. He exhaled into a weak but incredibly tender, quivering smile, and he just reached out and pulled me into a hug. I buried my head in his chest and his arms just wrapped around me. I just melted into him. He was so gentle. It felt so easy. It felt so right. Then he started crying, and then I started crying. He's been coming here through 2 years of cancer treatment and never seen him cry till now. He held me for a while, but however long it wasn't long enough. He still hadn't actually said a single word since I finished talking, but I guess he didn't really need to. Then he finally answered my question with, "Now it is." When he finally pulled away, his face was red from crying, but he just looked so happy. He looked at me for a bit. It was kind of cute because he had a little trouble maintaining eye contact, which he usually doesn't. He was like a little boy again. Then he finally looked right at me and he just said, "You are the only thing I've ever wanted." Then I started crying again and he started crying again and he pulled me to him and held me again. I wish it never ended. A little bit later, once we exhausted our crying capacity, I showed him the post. He made a few jokes about wanting to meet this James guy and about how he had better go and thank my mom for her 20-year wingwomanship Lowell. Then after he finished reading it, he kissed me. It felt easy, not scary at all, and just right. He asked me if it lived up to my daydreams, and I chuckled and said yes. Then he said, "I'm not so sure myself. I think I need more data," and kissed me again. He is so ridiculous, but this was smooth as butter. Then after that we started talking, and I guess he told me everything too. He said he'd loved me since we were little kids. Told me he still has every drawing/letter/craft I ever made for him in a safe that he took with him to college and has taken everywhere he's ever lived. We talked about the day I came out as gay to him and how he'd figured it out earlier. But he struggled to accept it for months in secret because he had lived his entire life up to that point, assuming we would be a family and wanting nothing else. He told me he thought about our last night before college all the time, and he kept hoping that entire night I'd say something before he left, because then he'd have transferred colleges to stay with me. Told me he actually took a very long way home just to prolong the time when we were holding hands and I was sleeping on his shoulder, and that it was to this day his favorite memory. Then he looked at me with those piercing green eyes and said, "For me, there has never been anyone else." He loved once, me, and then struggled through a bunch of rebounds, and even though he had learned to bury it and move on with life and was happy in our friendship, his heart had only ever belonged to me. Honestly, I guess I should have known this. My dad told me he was sure this was true before, but I didn't listen. But I was flustered and deeply moved. I joked that he should enter the Olympics as a torch carrier, and he said, "They'd never have a chance, I'm the greatest there ever was." Aw. We sat and talked and reminisced some more, mostly about when we were kids. I found out some things I never knew because he avoided telling me how romantic some things were for him after I came out. But I also kind of realized, I think they felt romantic to me too. Then he sang me some of our songs. His voice is so beautiful. We had another embrace and another kiss. Both still felt divine. I can't wait to have my hair back again so he can pet it like he used to when we were kids. Then I brought up the sex question, and OMG, it was the cutest shit ever. I barely got to say anything before he started tripping over himself like, "Look, I don't even care. I don't need that. If we need mistresses or something we can do that, it doesn't bother me. I just want to wake up with you every day." Which was sweet, but then I told him that even though I didn't know how that would go, and I might not be able to, I wanted to try with him anyway when I got better. And oh my God, he turned tomato red and could barely look at me. Literally could not even manage to form a sentence in response, just mumbled incoherently before managing to get out, Okay if you're sure. This man has been married and had 6 girlfriends, but he completely just falls all over himself at the thought. God, it was adorable. This is the only thing I'm still a little worried about, but I do want to try. I mean, I liked the kissing, which I thought was completely impossible. And I know that if it doesn't turn out well, it won't ruin anything, and we'll still be together and just figure something else out for that one need. Then we talked about the cancer. He is so sure I'm going to make it. It's so touching. It took a little while to get him to take the other possibility seriously. When I finally did, and I told him that it's the reason I didn't tell him sooner, he held my hand and told me that if that happens, he'd be okay because he'll always know that he was one of the lucky ones because he was mine. Jesus fucking Christ, I almost lost it. Then he said if we don't have that much time left, we better make sure every minute counts. I said, that's pretty hard to do in a hospital. And he replied, what do you mean? We're both here, and that makes this the best place on earth. Dear God, what did I do to deserve this man? I teared up again, and he held me one last time. Then the doctors came in. He kissed me goodnight. We both said I love you, but it felt so different. It's never felt so good to say or hear those words. Then he smiled at me and left. I was so excited the first thing I did was call Mom, and she was just ecstatic. I think she might be happier than me, which is saying something LOL. As soon as I told her what happened and that James and I are together, she just started crying and talking about what a good boy he is, how she just knew this would happen and that she can rest easy now because she knows I will always be loved and taken care of. Plenty of her destiny talk, which usually gets on my nerves. But honestly, I was so happy tonight, fuck it, I'm on board. Maybe it was destiny. I guess sometimes Mom really does know best. I feel like a teenager again. I never thought I'd feel this way again in my life. I never even imagined if I did it would be for a man. God, I love him so much. Now I can't understand what I was ever worried about or why I didn't do this years ago. Thanks so much to everyone who read my story and helped give me the perspective and courage I needed to finally do what I should have done years ago. Now, as long as my health cooperates, I'll be one of the lucky ones too, because I am his. Comment? I don't think I've ever been so happy for 2 strangers. I hope you both have a long, happy, and healthy life together, Link. Oopie. Thank you. God, I hope so too. Link. Thank you for sharing your story. I've got some happy tears over here for 2 people I've never met but am rooting like crazy for. Wishing you both all the best and a full recovery. Link. Damn, they should make a movie out of this. Got me smiling the whole time I was reading Link. OOP. If things work out well for me, I think I might try to write a novel. I've always wanted to anyway, and I have some things to write about.